Hey everyone, hope you're all doing great. Welcome back to the Anime Fictions 2.0. Today, we're diving into what if Naruto created over 1,000 shadow clones and cheated the Ninja Academy? If you're enjoying these alternate timelines, make sure to hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, and check out the other videos on the channel. And of course, drop your thoughts in the comments. I always love hearing your ideas. Alright, enough talk, let's get into the story. Prank Day 79. Janae was coming back from making a delivery to the Shushuya bar when his path crossed someone he wasn't expecting. Uchiha Sasuke. And he wasn't alone, either. Following him around like a puppy, as usual, was Sakura, along with Sakaki, one of the members of his previous class. Behind them, with his nose in a book was, he supposed, their sensei Hatake Kakashi. He'd known for a while that these three were a team, as rumors propagated quickly in the ninja environment. If he'd passed, based on his exam scores, he'd probably have been placed with Sasuke and Sakura under the same Kakashi. There still wasn't a general agreement within the clones whether this would have been a good thing or a bad thing, i.e. if being on a team with the Uchiha Prince was worth being on Sakura's squad. Janae nearly went forward to meet her, but remembered at the last moment who he currently was incarnating. Then something came to mind. He remembered that Team 7, Sakura's team, had been nominated for the Chunin exams along with every other rookie team, and that the second part was currently being performed. The Naruto clones would have known if Sasuke's team had already passed, and in fact had just overheard people betting over who would make it to the third part. That means that Sasuke had somehow failed in the first part. A smile rose on Janae's lips at the thought. Normally, thinking about the Chunin exam brought forth feelings of sadness, but the idea that Sasuke had failed at the very beginning made him feel good inside. Maybe the so-called prodigy would learn from the experience and become a better person. Nah, that'll never happen. As Team 7 turned toward the mission office, Janae continued on his path. He hoped that Choji, Shikamaru and Kiba had made it to the second part, and wished them good luck in it. Who knows, maybe he'd be able to see them fight in the third part if they made it. Prank Day 83. Once classes were done, there were often Narutos who left the base to go into Konoha proper. Some went to buy specific items of equipment, or prank tools, some went to other environments to train, like the forests surrounding the city, and some simply went around for a walk to rest their heads or think. Not all of them were underhenge either. The numbers were small enough that this hadn't caused any issue. By now, the news had made their rounds. Team 7 was the only rookie team not to have access to the third exam. Both Choji and Kiba's team had made it, and were currently preparing for the last part of the test in a month. That was the reason why this Naruto clone wasn't surprised to see Hinata training alone in a field, striking relentlessly at a post. She was actually one of his former female classmates he preferred, especially from last year. Unlike everyone else, she focused on being an efficient ninja instead of chasing after boys like Sasuke. She was actually the only girl he could remember from that class that didn't have a crush on the Uchiha heir. He didn't remember having talked to her very often, but she at least deserved congratulations on getting to the last part of the exam. Hey Hinata, the clone said as he approached. Good work on making it to the last third of the tournament. Naruto? She said, turning around instantly. Judging by how red her face was, she must have been training harshly for a good while. She then bowed deeply. Thank you for these kind words, she said, though her tone indicated that this was somewhat by rote. Hey, no need to bow to me, the Bunshin said. I'm the one who should be bowing to you. You're nearly Chunin by now. She quickly rose, shaking her hands and head negatively. No, please don't, she replied, getting redder. What can I do for you, Naruto? Nothing, just wanted to give my congratulations, the clone said, then realized Hinata was breathing hard. Harder than he thought was good for her. You should rest a while, actually. You seem pretty out of it. Hinata lowered her face at those words. I can't. Actually, now that I think about it, you're from a big clan, correct? The clone continued. Why are you training alone in the fields when you could do so in the Hyuga compound? I can't train with members of the clan, Hinata muttered, voice low. What? The clone said, surprised. I can't do training in the compound, she said quite a bit more loudly, with unshed tears in the corners of her eyes. Slowly, the whole story came out. She was to face her cousin Niji in the first round of the final. She'd never defeated him in the past, and as such her father had ordered the clan not to waste time on Hinata while her father had taken his nephew under his wing. Nobody of the clan would go against such an order. Of course, she practiced with her own teacher, but Yuhi Kurinai was an illusion specialist, and illusions weren't going to be of much help against a prodigy with the. Worse was that she had 3 different students in the finals, which meant she wasn't able to give her full time to any of them. Each had 4 hours of training each day with their joining, but that wouldn't be enough to face her cousin. The clone stopped her when she started repeating the last conversations she had with Niji, along with the issues between the main clan and the branch house. He did so by saying 5 words. Your father is an asshole. Hinata clamped up instantly, covering her mouth with her hands. I'm not joking, the Bunshin continued, completely serious. This is like the worst idea ever. If I had 2 kids fighting each of them in the first round of the tournament, I wouldn't ignore one to make sure the other is as good as he can be. I'd train the both of them so hard that when the 2 met in the arena, they'd have a fight awesome enough that the judges would have no choice but to promote them both. Hinata couldn't help but release a small giggle at those words. See? He said. Even you know I'm right. She giggled again, then let her face fall. Hinata? The clone asked. I can't beat Niji, she replied. He's better, stronger, and faster than I am. Maybe I should just give up now and not shame myself in front of everyone. The clone's face went tense. Can you still walk? He asked sternly. What? Hinata replied, unsure. Can you still walk? The Bunshin repeated louder. Yes. Hinata squeaked. Can you still fight? The copy yelled even louder. Yes, she said, a little surer. Then, there is no giving up. Giving up is for when you can't move, when you can't fight. When nothing can be done. The clone looked at her in the eyes. And you still have a month in front of you to get better. There's still a lot that can change. Case to point, he'd personally gone from failing the academy to infiltrating it, with 3 different forbidden techniques, hundreds of clones and a summoning contract in less than a month. But I can't do it, the Hyuga heiress muttered. Yes you can, and I'll help, the clone said. You will? She said, her face brightening like the rising sun. Then it fell once more. But what about the academy? I wouldn't want to hurt your chances at finally passing. With what all the various Narutos now knew about passing, they weren't afraid much. They trusted Irika's words, and he said he'd go straight to the Hokage once the prank was done. Still, he couldn't tell Hinata that. So he went with something else. Hinata, can you keep a secret? He asked. The Hyuga heiress nodded. Can you swear it? I swear I will not reveal your secret, Hinata said solemnly. The clone nodded. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he invoked, generating another copy beside himself. Her eyes went wide, then blank as she called upon her bloodline. He's real, she said with some surprise. You can do the Kage Bunshin? The copy nodded once more. Yup. I learned it right after the last academy final. There won't be an issue with us training you, as you can see, the newest clone said. We can be in both places at once. Your clones last that long, Naruto? Hinata asked. Both Bunshins nodded. The both of us are clones, actually, the new one pointed out. Hinata said nothing, surprised once again. So, what were you training for? The first clone asked. The main katas of the gentle fist? She answered, uncertain. The 2 Bunshins looked at each other before turning back to the heiress. Didn't you say he was faster and better than you at it? She lowered her head. Yes. Whoa. Whoa. Don't be ashamed. He'd got a head start, so of course he'll be better at some things, the second clone replied. What about ninjutsu? Anything mid-range or long-range? Her head stayed down. Outside shuriken and kunai, I don't have anything like that. What about him? Her head rose as she thought for a moment. Not that I know of. He's all taijutsu, outside the usual ninja tools. The first clone looked straight at the second. You thinking what I'm thinking? Matsuri? The clone nodded with a grin. Exactly. Matsuri? Hinata asked, upon when the two clones turned toward her. Her finger instinctively started pushing each other as she went redder once more. You have a pen and paper? She handed the clone the requested items. Meet us in 30 minutes at this place, he said, handing her the address. We'll get what you need. He turned to his fellow Naruto. You go get the scroll, I'll find us something to train with. The other clone nodded. Let's go. Less than a minute, she was back alone in the field. After a quick flash of her revealed no one looking at her, she started dancing, lost to her fantasies. She had a date. With Naruto. Of course, it was for training and with a clone, but still date. With Naruto. She twirled around for a good 10 minutes before returning to reality. Naruto was counting on her. She wouldn't fail him. Naruto had chosen the Himitsu place for one good reason in particular. Like many ninja complexes, it contained an underground training room. Of course, the room had nothing on the Uruhara tunnels, but it was still large enough that a small group could easily train there. It was in that basement that the, now 3, Naruto clones brought Hinata to train. So, what is Matsuri? Hinata asked, once again pushing her fingers together. Wano Mastery, the first clone explained, is a combat style meant mainly for enclosed places. It's based on creating an environment under the user's control that's dangerous to opponents. It should be perfect for you in the arena. Sorry I'm late. Another clone said. He entered the basement. Had a few issues finding what we needed. Managed getting approval from the boss, though. You got them, right? The leading Bunshin asked. Of course. He then handed the leader a good dozen hoops made out of plastic. Hoops? The heiress asked, surprised. Not really, but that's what we'll start training with, the clone replied. The real technique uses chakrams, but better to start with something a little less dangerous. Are you sure? Can I learn this? Hinata asked, suddenly uncertain. Well, you have all the requirements. You're fast, graceful, precise, and those eyes of yours are a big advantage, the clone said. And since it was originally a Hyuga technique, I think it should only be right if you learn it. Hinata's eyes went wide. You know one of my clan's techniques? The clones scratched the back of their heads. Well, I don't know it per se, but we have documentation on how it is performed. She thought for a moment. I've never heard of that technique, actually. She suddenly realized. As a potential heiress, there weren't many documents that she couldn't access, and she knew at least the names of all the official techniques of the Hyuga clan. That's not surprising, since it was banned around the time your father was born, another of the Narutos, the one holding a scroll, explained. From what's written along with the style, one of the trainees hurt himself seriously while practicing, and the then current leader of the clan, who disliked the style since it had been created by a branch house member, used that opportunity to arrange for it to get forbidden, then banned it from being used by the clan. Its creator and her team then died a few months later under bizarre circumstances. A female branch house member? Hinata asked. The clone nodded. Yes. The note says she was both unsatisfied by the Juken and not particularly talented in its use. He raised the hoops in his hand. Want to try? She nodded a little. She wasn't going to give up, not right in front of Naruto. What do I do? The clone passed a few hoops to each of his brothers. It's simple for now. We'll throw these at you, sometimes bouncing them off the wall. Your job is to grab them by the inside, like so. He indicated the proper grip with one of the hoops he held. And throw them back at us as quickly as possible. Should I use my eyes? She asked. She meant of course. The clone nodded. Of course. It's gonna be all of us against you, so you have to start with some advantage. Also, these things aren't as fast as the real thing, but they'll do until we manage to get some real ones. Hinata took a deep breath and placed herself instinctively in the beginning position of the Juken. I'm ready. A trio of hoops came right at that moment, from 3 different directions. She grabbed the first and dodged the other 2, throwing it straight back at one of the clones. Her target was expecting it and dodged, grabbing it once it bounced back. 2 more came, then another 3. She managed to grab 2 that time and threw them back with little results. Still more came. Slowly, she started getting in the pattern. First it was calculating the bounces in advance. Then she realized that she could do better by spinning to preserve as much of the hoop's momentum as possible. She then started using indirect attacks instead of direct ones, and those found much more success. So, the Naruto's upped the ante. More clones, more hoops flying around. Hinata's movements became crisper and faster, more fluid as the minutes passed. Even better, she found that she was having fun. There was none of the rigidity of the Juken in this style. It was more grace and precision instead of speed and directness. She started smiling as the hoops flew around, dodging them by centimeters and redirecting them when necessary. She felt more in control than she had ever been, and she liked the feeling. "Stop throwing them and catch them now," the leading clone ordered, dodging a hoop. "Hi, sensei," Hinata replied instinctively, a smile on her face. She started keeping those she grabbed, slowly piling them on her forearms. The numbers in the air diminished slowly, but after 5 more minutes she had all the hoops on her arms. "So, how was it?" the leader asked. She simply bowed deeply. "Thank you for the lesson, sensei," she said with a smile. "I found the exercise quite fun, actually," she added. "Look at your arms," another of the clones said. She did so, not knowing why. Then a second later she realized that there were a lot of hoops there, a lot more than she expected. 10, 20, 30, 68 hoops? She said, surprised. "We had a copy outside cloning more, just to see if you could handle it," a bunshin in the back said. "For a small room like this one, more than 60's a lot. With a month's training, I think you'll do a good enough showing in the tournament," the leader continued. "And that won't be all. There's other tricks that will help you get the most out of that month." Hinata bowed deeply once more. "Teach me, sensei," she said enthusiastically. "Look up," the leading clone said, placing his hands in the seal the Naruto bunshins used the most often. "This seal is the main seal for the Kage bunshin," he explained with a smile. Prank Day 87. Living as Ariko was quite a difference to Naruto. He'd not thought about it before the prank, but there were serious differences between how groups of men and groups of women treated each other. While they'd been more schoolmates than true friends, Naruto had still gone out with Choji, Kiba, and Shikamaru a number of times. They had fun, true, but there was always some form of competition underneath it all, especially from Kiba. Naruto had sparred with him and Choji often enough to know that. Shikamaru was different, but still a challenge, this time in making the least effort. There wasn't any of that in the group he currently hung out with. The Konoha Fashion Ninja, as they called themselves, didn't compete much. Fumichi was the leader and everyone accepted that, falling in line behind her. There were none of the power games he'd seen between Ino and Sakura. Everyone had their own specialties, their own places where they excelled, and that seemed to be enough. As an example, in the last kunai throwing exams, Ariko had ranked highest among the group, highest in the class, actually. Where between guys there would be a reluctant good work, or more likely a enjoy your victory while you can, between the girls it was all great job, not surprising, and I'll know who to ask for help. And they meant it too. Not that the Naruto clone was the best everywhere. In the traditional kunoichi arts, she trailed behind the rest of the group. Still, they had no issue in explaining court manners or flower language, along with whatever else was needed. The bunshin was learning quite a bit there, though not what she preferred. At least, it might help her infiltration skills. There were also other domains where one or another member excelled, like Mihoshi and ninjutsu. "No, no, no!" Mihoshi exclaimed, looking at the nearly transparent clone Asano had made. "It didn't even last half a minute. You gotta put more into it. More and more until you get something real, something usable. Only then can you start trying to scale it back." "Yeah, but it's tiring," Asano whined. The tall girl's clone chose that moment to vanish completely, leaving only smoke behind. "Better to be tired in peace than dead in war, my parents always say," Mihoshi replied, idly taking her long black hair out of her face. She was the only one of the group to have ninja parents, and even if the Okita weren't part of a clan, they had trained their daughter effectively. "Now again." "Hi," Asano answered. Mihoshi then made her way before Ariko, who made a single normal clone. It turned out exactly like the one from Naruto's last attempt at passing, blank-faced and falling over itself sick in a second. Actually, Ariko was pretty sure this one lasted even less time than the two she'd made then. The second generation ninja inclined her head in confusion. That's new, she said diplomatically. They always do that for some reason, the female Naruto clone replied dejectedly. Can you do 3 more? Mihoshi asked. I want to see it again. Ariko did as asked, creating 3 in one shot. This trio had more color, true, but still fell over sick right as they appeared. Is it just me? Mihoshi asked. Or did these 3 last a little bit longer? It wasn't only her. Ariko was pretty sure the clone had survived longer than the previous batch. It's not just you. Mihoshi nodded. Try 10. It was even more evident with 10. The 10 were nearly looking healthy, and while they crouched somewhat and held their stomachs, they weren't vanishing like the ones before. Further tests revealed the clones were normal looking starting at 14, and really usable at 19. Well, we have a starting point, at least, Mihoshi said. Ariko nodded. The Bunshins had been training non-stop on the various techniques they'd decided on, and they'd slowly but surely improved. Now that she had a starting point, she could work at it and get better. Thank you? Mihoshi smiled. Glad to help. Now, if you don't mind, I'll go see Nishi again. She's still having issues. Go. I'll work at it on my side. Ariko dispelled her clones as Mihoshi walked away. The shadow clone might be better, but they needed to get this version working if they really wanted to pass. So she extended her fingers in the ram seal and started once more. Bunshin no! Prank Day 89. Naruto rolled the dice in front of him. 6 4 4 1 3 5. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He invoked, his hands automatically making the cross seal required. Nothing happened. He then waited. Like he'd done before, he was training in the Kage Bunshin. He wasn't trying to improve solidity anymore. No, he was trying the very opposite. He was trying to update everyone's memories without making a clone. As the real Naruto, he was the only one who could effectively train in this. Using the normal Kage Bunshin had a number of issues if used only for updating memories. First, it was a waste of chakra, which, while not applicable to himself as the living one, was a problem for the many Bunshins. Second was time, as precious seconds were wasted creating, making the clone kill itself or dispelling him. In battle, that could be the difference between life and death. But mainly, it was an issue of stealth. Creating a clone was very visible, and there had been times where Bunshins had nearly been discovered because of that. If they could refresh every clone's memories with a simple hand sign, it would make the infiltrators both more efficient at sending updates, and less likely to be noticed. A clone knocked on the door Naruto was in. The original went and opened it, crossing his fingers. Code? He asked. 644135, the clone answered. We have it, right? Right. Naruto smiled. It seems that yes, we finally have it. Go join the people training downstairs, I'm going to try again just to confirm. The copy nodded and left, closing the door behind him. The setup was simple. Naruto would roll the dice to get a random code, then perform the technique. If everything went correctly, the many clones in the next room would get the code, and send someone over with it. The dice were simply to have something random, something that couldn't be guessed. There had been many errors, clones missing body parts, tiny clones, some prodigious bursts of short-lasting smoke, and even a bizarre Naruto Bunshin with no memories. But it seemed he finally had it. This time, however, he didn't roll anything. Code, Sasuke with Sakura's pink hair. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He waited the requisite second, and opened the door when someone knocked. Did you send in an abnormal code, boss? Say it, Naruto replied. Sasuke with Sakura's pink hair, the clone intoned. That's it, right? The real Naruto's grin was all the answer he needed. Still, Naruto did the technique 3 more times, just to make sure he could perform it without mistakes. It went without a hitch. He then had various clones do updates, just to make sure the technique spread within the group. Ariko, Mirumaru, the merchant heads, he basically had every single important clone do the technique and waited for their update. An update they did? He did, however, start having an issue with the clones further away. It sometimes took 2-3 times before he got a reply. Discussion with his other clones revealed that this wasn't the technique failing, but something else. Some clones got the update, some didn't. Naruto had been afraid of that. After the problems he'd had with the returning grass team, he suspected there were limits to the memory transferal effect of the technique. Now, he had confirmation. Well, at least he'd have something else to work on regarding the Kage Bunshin. Prank Day 90. Again, Naruto ordered. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Hinata intoned, clearly putting her all into it. Her fingers flashed in the cross seal, and a new Hinata appeared beside the first. The second Naruto in the room reached out and shook the new clone's hand. "It's good," he said. "This one's solid enough." It had been a week since the academy student had started training the Hyuga Genin. A long week where they worked on the shadow clone whenever Hinata had enough chakra, and the Matsuri otherwise. Naruto had hoped Hinata would get the technique quickly to maximize her training, but still it took 7 days. The worst part was, if one counted attempts, Hinata had him beat. It had taken 2 hours for Naruto to finally manage the technique, but that was at around 5 to 6 attempts a minute. At her best, Hinata managed 1 a minute, and that steadily went downward as the day went on. It was visible she was giving her best, with the number of times she fainted trying, but it seemed her reserves couldn't take it. Naruto had known he had more chakra to spare than anyone in his class, but he didn't think the disparity was that wide. He knew better now. The ninja took in great gulps of air. "Now what, sensei?" The 2 Uzumaki clones looked at each other, then nodded. "Now your clone comes with me in the next room. She's gonna be learning the techniques attached to the Matsuri," the first clone said, indicating the door. "While you're going to stay with me and we're going to start on the next phase of your Matsuri training." The second Naruto continued while his partner took the clone out of the room. "Next phase?" Hinata said, still regaining her breath. The clone went in the corner of the room and brought out a single package. "This time, we'll be using these." He handed the wrapped objects to her. Out of breath as she was, she didn't have the energy to go at it delicately. She ripped the paper off, revealing 6 sharp rings of metal, tied together in simple ropes. "Those are," she started. "Those are the real thing, true chakrams," the Bunshin explained. "They're simply made, true, but they'll do the job." Those were only the first batch. The clone network had orders all over Fire Country for them. By the time the tournament came, they should have at least 100 of them, if not more. They're beautiful," Hinata replied. As an heir, she'd gotten numerous gifts over the years, but none had the meaning behind them this one had. Naruto believed in her so much that he was spending his own money to help her. It made her feel warm inside. She took a deep breath, then rose to her feet. "I'm ready for more, sensei," she exclaimed, cutting off the ropes and grabbing the chakrams in her hands. "Careful with those," the clone said. "They're sharp, trust me." One of the clones had burst simply from handling them. "Anyway, we're gonna go slow, getting you used to them. Try to see how they fly, how they bounce. We'll go to true sparring later." He made a cross seal, and 6 more clones appeared around him. "Ready? Let's dance." "Hi," she replied, launching one from each hand. They were heavier, but flew straighter and bounced at a different angle. 2 more were thrown, then she dodged one returning and grabbed the second, throwing it back instinctively. As the chakrams bounced everywhere and her feet twirled on the floor, she smiled. This was the best week of her life, going on the best month. She hoped it never ended. Prank Day 92. Jumpers did not have a set schedule. Since they went back and forth so often, night and day had become meaningless. They tended toward sleeping only when they arrived at their destination, and that was when they didn't work through the night. That meant there could be jumpers coming around at any time during the day. A Kero tradition was the jumpers took names from colors, if they didn't already have one, was a clone descending from those sent to Tea Country. He'd chosen the jumper lifestyle, preferring to see places rather than do infiltration. It wasn't his first trip back to Konoha. He'd carried back some spices for Tuchi's first order. By now he was used to traveling the Uruhara hidden paths, and could agree that smuggling had been one of their main purposes. His target was simple, the civilian clones, representing the Naruto Council, had managed to get a lease on some of the space in the one warehouse the Uruhara tunnels connected to. This was perfect as it allowed the clones to come and go as needed. Akero was supposed to have arrived late in the evening, but he miscalculated on how much chakra he had. He'd been forced to make a stop for a few hours to replenish his reserves, and that was why he was running the tunnels past midnight. He was surprised to see light coming from the trapdoor at the end of the path, as the warehouse was usually sparsely lit, but paid it no mind, thinking there was someone else working late. There was also a bizarre smell to the air. Then he stepped into an inferno. There was fire everywhere, floor to ceiling. On the side, crates were happily burning while pots exploded and boxes burst. Akero reacted instantly. He dashed into the corner reserved in Janae's name, dodging flames and burning debris, and found a single clone there, holding up a black ball. That was the only reason their corner had been spared until now. "We got to get this fire out." "I can't move!" The clone, another jumper with the unfortunate name of Naruto, yelled back. After a second of observation, he saw why. Naruto was moving his sphere back and forth, draining the flames all around their cargo, and the spots he left quickly got filled again by more fire. Since the boxes did contain alcohol, even too much heat might be dangerous. The jumper thought for an instant. Creating more clones wasn't really doable, as they'd burst into smoke in an instant. Another sphere would help, but he didn't believe it would be enough, not at the speed the fire was going. Creating water wouldn't fix this, as it wouldn't be enough while bursting him. He messaged everyone, but he didn't think help was going to be fast enough. Escape was the only valid option. "Cover me!" Akero yelled, sliding to the crates. He didn't wait, withdrawing a scroll from his pocket and sealing the first container he found. Then the second. Then the third. He thanked whoever was listening that jumpers always carried numerous storage scrolls on themselves. Sealing everything took a minute, which was the longest minute of his life. By then, the ceiling had started giving up the ghost, so Akero dashed back into the tunnels under the protection of Naruto's sphere. Only then did he take a breath. Other clones started appearing in the following minutes. Not many, since most were asleep, but enough. Akero quickly ordered this tunnel filled, as the fire would probably lead to an investigation, and the tunnels being found wasn't something they could deal with. The ladder was removed and shovels were quickly found as the tunnel was packed tight with dirt. As he did so, Akero couldn't help but think. He didn't think this was a coincidence, not with a fire that hot. There was clearly something fishy going on in Konoha. Prank Day 92. Tucci found Janae beside the charred remains of the warehouse in the morning. "Hello, Jisei-san? I've heard, are you okay?" The Naruto Bunshin nodded. "Any losses?" "Not much. Nothing that can't be replaced," the clone said, turning toward the chef. "There had been some damaged products from the heat, though very little." "Does this happen often?" "Not really, but it isn't the first time," Tucci answered. "When the others said they faced setback after setback, this is the kind of thing they meant. It's rarely one specific event, but a number of issues like this one." "And nothing's been done?" the Bunshin asked. "There's no trace found, from what I understand," Tucci replied. "And it rarely is the same thing twice. Next, a caravan will be attacked, a supplier will stop selling, or a shipment will go missing. No real link between the two events, except that they affect the same people. There's a good number of traders who stopped selling because of that. It just cut too much into their profits to be viable." "One thing's for sure, I'm not giving up," Janae exclaimed. "I'm not gonna let something like this get between my clients and me." He looked straight at the restaurant owner. "You'll have your orders on time, even if I have to run back and forth to win by myself." "Glad to hear it and to see you're fine," Tucci replied with a smile. "I'll be leaving you to your work and returning to my stand. See you later, Janae-san." "See you? I'll make sure to pass by sometime today," the clone replied with a wave. He stayed there for 3 more hours. A&Bu came and went, and he was interrogated by a pair of, as were the other merchants who had cargo inside the warehouse. One thing was sure, something like this wouldn't happen again. The Naruto Council wouldn't let it. Prank Day 95. "No, no, no!" Irika yelled. "They have to be put in the same movement, not separately. Try again." "Hi!" the many Narutos replied, grabbing their fake explosive tags back from around them. This was both a reward for the trap course and an early birthday present from Irika to Naruto. The Chunin had taken the day off from teaching, and instead was giving Naruto a full day of personal training. And the academy student accepted that happily. Faster! Make those seals faster! Your enemies won't wait for you to finish, you know, the teacher yelled. Irika was a slave driver when working with a single person. Naruto, however, didn't mind. He knew very well that he learned best while under pressure, as the Kage Bunshin had proven months ago. The training group broke for dinner late, at nearly 2 p.m. They were making good progress though in the advanced tagging techniques Irika was showing. So, are we doing good enough? Naruto asked while snacking on a rice ball. More than good, the teacher exclaimed. I don't really have a reference for learning with shadow clones, but you're making progress faster than I did when my Jonin sensei taught me. Naruto smiled, then grimaced somewhat when something came to mind. Can I ask a personal question, sensei? Irika inclined his head somewhat. Go ahead. I may not answer though. He then grabbed some dango from his plate. Did you ever try 4? Naruto asked. The Chunin shook his head. No, I was a genin for many years, and barely made it to Chunin. Going farther than that seems impossible. Did you want to? Naruto continued. Well, who doesn't want to be powerful and respected, to be one of the elite? I wouldn't mind, provided I deserved it, Irika answered, eyes looking up. I'd like to be a Jonin sensei, I think. Naruto smiled. Want help? What? The Chunin replied. Well, I'm already teaching one ninja. Teaching another shouldn't be that much of an issue, Naruto explained, grabbing a dumpling. Your Irika started, then stopped himself. I don't remember that from the last council meeting. Who are you teaching again? Hinata. Hinata Hyuga? Irika asked. Naruto nodded. Isn't she currently in training for the tournament? Naruto nodded again. Yeah, and I'm the one training her. Her father did a dick move, and she didn't like her chances. Yeah, I understand the last part, Irika said, frowning. Niji, her opponent, is pretty much the best gentle fist user of his generation, and his joint teacher is well known for his immense skill in taijutsu. She'll have a rough time there. We're working on it, Naruto replied, face serious. She's advancing pretty well. I think she'll have a good chance against her opponent at the tournament. What are you teaching her? Irika asked. Naruto smirked. That you'll see at the arena like everyone else. There was a moment of silence as Irika thought as he ate. He had to agree that he'd not improved much since he'd taken up a post at the academy. The long days along with his work at the mission office might be safe, but it didn't leave much time for training. What time he could give might keep him from getting rusty, but it didn't push his skills up. Well, there wasn't much to lose by accepting Naruto's help. His student was full of surprises, so who knew what he might learn? I wouldn't mind some help, actually, the Chunin finally replied. I might not make it to join, but I wouldn't say no to learning more. Good! Naruto exclaimed. We'll start after the next council meeting. Prepare yourself to learn the Kage Bunshin, he intoned gravely. The Kage, are you sure? Irika asked. From what I understand, it's a Jonin level. It only makes sense to go for joining techniques when you're reaching for that rank. Anyway, Hinata managed it, and she's up to 2 at the same time by now, Naruto explained. I'm pretty sure you can manage at least 1. Irika had to agree that this was one technique he wouldn't mind mastering. The ability to leave a clone behind to grade homework while he trained would be invaluable. I'll hold you on to that, the Chunin said, rising. Now, are you ready to continue? You betcha, Naruto answered, jumping straight up. Let's go, let's go. Irika smiled at his students' enthusiasm as they went back down to the training area. If he kept that up, he'd go far for sure. Prank Day 98. Today was a day Naruto both liked and dreaded. This was one of the very few times during the year where he'd be able to hang out with the Sandaime without him being busy with work. On the other hand, this was the day where the general Konoha population treated him the worst, as long as the Hokage wasn't there. And this year, he knew why. Today was the day of Kyuubi's defeat, the day Yondaime was honored for his sacrifice. Today was October 10th. His birthday. School was out today, as it was every year. Normally, on days like this one where he didn't have school, he'd leave straight for the Uruhara basement to go and train, but today he stayed at home and waited. He did train a little in his apartment, but he mainly took the morning slow. Even he could take his birthday off. The Hokage knocked on his door at exactly 11, and Naruto waited no time to answer. "Hey old man," he said with a smile. "Finally had a day off? You should take some more, else you won't last until I can take your place." The elder ninja smiled back. "Don't worry, these old bones have plenty of life left in them. Now ramen?" "Ramen!" Naruto exclaimed, stepping close to the sandaime. The elder ninja put an arm around his shoulder, and both vanished in a burst of chakra, leaving only some leaves behind. At that exact time, the two of them appeared right before the restaurant. Normally, Ichiraku Ramen didn't have that many customers, especially today. Most people knew that he frequented the establishment, and made themselves scarce on this day. But this time, there were already two people present. A woman in her 20s with her dark hair in a bun, and a rail-thin teenager with dark brown hair. Naruto had a good idea who they were. Right as the Hokage had his back to him, Naruto clapped both thumbs together, rabbit sign language for report. Both the people at the stand scratched behind their left ear, nearly in perfect synchronization, code for listening. Yup, both of them were clones. Naruto took a seat right beside the Hokage, and started ordering. He hadn't had breakfast, just to make sure he could eat as much Ichiraku ramen as he could. As usual, conversation quickly started flowing from the sandaime, who started going on in his stories as he normally did, not that Naruto minded. The two clones left not long after, with about a minute's interval. Hiruzen was explaining one of his missions as genin, in which he had been interrupted by an ANBU, when something came to Naruto's mind. "Hey old man. Mind if I ask you something?" "Go ahead," the Hokage said with a smile. "The ANBU, they're the ones who go after criminals, right?" Naruto continued. "Right. If someone needed one, like urgently," Naruto said. "What does someone call them?" "Well, they're supposed to be watching the whole town, so they shouldn't be very far. Yelling might work well enough," the Hokage explained. "I suppose you have a good reason to ask? You saw something that required the ANBU instantly?" "Kinda, yeah," the blonde replied, scratching the back of his head. "Nothing I can prove, though, and whoever did it escaped without being seen. The Naruto Council had sent people around as they were filling the tunnels. They hadn't caught a single glimpse of anyone dangerous or suspicious anywhere close to the burning building." The Hokage nodded seriously, then made a single sign in the air. An ANBU member appeared a second later, staying only long enough to hand the Hokage something. He handed the item to Naruto. "This is a specific kind of flashbang, reserved to the ANBU. It explodes bright blue, and is the ANBU signal for an emergency," the Hokage said solemnly. "I'm going to trust you with this. Let's be clear, though. It isn't for pranks. If you use it, I expect you to have a valid reason, because the punishment for using it improperly will be grave. Do you understand?" Naruto nodded seriously. "I understand, Hokage-sama." Hiruzen smiled, and the seriousness of the moment was broken. "Good. Now, where was I?" "Don't tell me you already forgot, old man?" Naruto smirked. "You'd nearly thrown a fireball in ANBU's face. You're getting way too old if your memory's going." "Ah yes," the Hokage replied. "Well, I threw that fireball. Then I turned blank as a sheet, realizing what I had just done. I was sure my sensei was going to put a tree where the sun doesn't shine for." Prank Day 101. The training had changed. Since Hinata was now able to call on a single shadow clone every now and then, the real Hinata and the clones had switched roles. The clones now trained with the chakrams, fighting Naruto clones with live steel, while the true Hyuga focused on her physical abilities. Push-ups, sit-ups, running, weights, she did them all. The goal was to improve her endurance as much as possible before the tournament began. The clones had done some research on Niji's sensei, and saw the kind of training he did. They wanted to make sure Niji couldn't easily outlast Hinata. 300. The genin said, her face drowning in sweat. A Naruto clone handed her a towel, which she accepted with a bright smile. She was breathing hard, but seemed ready to continue. Now what, sensei? She asked after taking a deep breath. Well, your clone is still down there fighting and you've learned all the techniques required by the Matsuri style, so we're going with something else, another Naruto in the room said. She'd managed the techniques very quickly, faster than Naruto would have alone. It helped that they weren't particularly demanding in terms of energy. Hinata nodded. What, sensei? It's a blinding technique I've learned, Naruto explained. One that's very effective against people with. A little too effective, from my point of view. How is that? Hinata asked. It can cause permanent eye damage if used too close. Needless to say, you are not to use it while you have your active, understood? The other boy said, completely serious. Understood, sensei. Naruto scratched the back of his head. I'd prefer it if you didn't use it against Niji. He's an asshole from what I've heard, but he doesn't deserve being blind for the rest of his life. Hinata nodded in agreement. There was a lot of bad blood between Niji and her, but something like that wouldn't solve anything. It would just breed more resentment between the main and branch houses. Then why teach me? Better you know it, and never need it than the opposite, Naruto replied. I can trust you with it. Use it only against deadly threats. Hinata nodded again. Hi, sensei. Now, it goes like this, the blonde said, showing her the hand signs. It's important to focus on light as you do it, on. Hinata listened intently. She'd gotten so much better because of Naruto, and she didn't want to disappoint him. She was going to give it her everything, and show him how good she was. Prank Day 103. The trading network hadn't even faltered after the fire. In fact, they started pushing even harder, being even more visible. They were prepared now for whoever was after them. The group had rented space in another warehouse, this one on the other side of the village, and was doing business from there. From what Tucci and the others were saying, they should expect another attempt anywhere from tomorrow to sometime next month. Probably not a fire, though. They were ready for that case anyway. Day and night, there were now a dozen clones under various disguises in and around the warehouse. It wasn't the most glamorous of jobs, but they managed. Most of them trained in something or other while waiting, techniques or the like in animal form. Nezumi, named after his disguise, that of a large rat, received a memory from the clone leading the current round of the guard. This was the request for a status update, which happened every hour. The rat clone stopped walking on the wall, dropped down, and crossed his paws to send his update, thanking the training the clones had been doing on this particular version of the Kagebunshin no Jutsu. It was so useful that they'd each worked a good number of hours on being able to do it in whatever shape they were. He had a flash of 4 other locations, the that accompanied him and the leader as part of the outside guard, then nothing. Where were the other 6 sets of memories? Zuku, the leading copy, sent another request, this one clearly imbued with a sense of emergency. Again, no answer from anyone inside. Then Nezumi received the all-in command. He didn't wait a second, running straight to the warehouse, then right up the wall. That particular location had been chosen because it had a hole in one of the air ducts, allowing transformed clones to rush straight inside. Nezumi did so, preceded by Zuku and Maru. The first detail that was noticed was the smell. There was something in the air, though fading. The clone ignored that, dashing to their corner of the building. It was completely empty. And not only their spot, but everywhere. Zuku looked all around and, finding no one, turned back into his original form. The rest of the group quickly followed. Kinizumi, the leader, said, "Run to base and make sure our clones are still fine." Cloners were copies made to duplicate material, in this case their cargo. I doubt we'd all have missed those memories, but better make sure. The rest of you, check for the others. We didn't get an update, so they should still be here. Kinizumi turned back into a squirrel and took off, while the others searched. It didn't take long for them to be found, as they were still at their posts. They were all, to the man, asleep right where they should have been. Shaking them up gave no quick results, and they were loath to use harsher methods that might burst them. It took a clone getting water from a rain barrel and splashing it to their faces before one came back to reality. This one, Chado, shook himself dry, then turned back into Naruto. "What happened?" he asked. "That's what we're wanting to know," the leading Bunshin replied. Chado thought for an instant. I just fell asleep, for some reason. Did? Yes, everyone inside had a snooze, Zuko said, pointing toward the others still asleep. And we're still missing one. The inside guard looked at those still present. Usagi's missing, he finally replied. He decided to hide inside one of the boxes, actually. Everyone stared at him. You mean the boxes that are no longer there, right? Maru said. He took a good look at his surroundings. Yeah, those. Zuko rose. Get more water, we're waking everybody up, he ordered. Then we're all moving back to base. There's nothing else to guard here, and we'll have to wait for Usagi's report before anything else. He clapped his hands. Let's move, people! Usagi woke up to masks. Due to his current size, they were huge. Remembering what he currently was, he turned and hid in the corner opposite to the faces, and squeaked as if he was afraid. There is a rabbit in this box, the first said flatly. Orders are orders. The contents stay here for 5 nights, then are to be transferred to location 13, the other replied just as tonelessly. He then closed the lid once more. Usagi waited until the noise coming from the 2 ninja moved away, thinking all the while. He'd fallen asleep for some reason, then woke up in this place, wherever this was. Well, first things first. He crossed his paws, sending out an update. He didn't have to wait long for a reply from Zuko, which contained a message for him. Where are you? He actually had no clue, so finding out was the priority. The box he was in had a hole in it, one not big enough for a rabbit. Transforming himself into a small rat, he snuck out the container, then navigated around the other boxes to get a good vantage point. The place made him think of the Uruhara basement, actually. Big, empty place, earthen walls, seal lights. There were enough differences to make it clear it wasn't the same, mainly in the shape and the light level, but the basics remained. Exploration was needed then. As a rat, Usagi climbed up the walls, quickly finding himself on the ceiling. He then started down the only corridor leading away from the Naruto group's fake cargo. He took it slow, keeping to the ceiling and matching his color to that of the walls. With his size, everything took longer, but he emerged in the equivalent of a cafeteria after an hour's search. And there were quite a few people inside. At first, Naruto thought this place belonged to the ANBU, but reconsidered after a while. There were too many kids down there, some he'd even guessed were younger than the real Naruto. Also, he'd seen a lot of ANBU masks in his life, and none of the ones down here matched. They were similar, true, but not exactly the same. The eerie thing about this place was how calm it was. Even with more than 15 people in the room, there wasn't any conversation save short phrases delivered flatly here and there. It was even more silent than his time in the real ANBU cafeteria, something which he wouldn't have thought possible. Still, cafeteria meant kitchen, and kitchen meant some form of ventilation shafts. He'd used those in pranks before, so he knew what to expect. It took a while for a valid entry point to be found, but once that was done there was no stopping him. Once far enough away from the cafeteria, he generated a dozen clones, and sent every possible way in the ducts. The first one out was one of the new clones, and he messaged everyone as soon as he was back above ground. He was then quickly guided to an alley where the rest of the guard team were waiting. So, what now? The new Bunshin asked, turning back to human form. Are you fine? The clone nodded. Well, Zuko replied. Orders are to make sure whoever causes these issues is forced to stop. With what you found, I say dropping the ANBU on them is the best way to accomplish that. Either they're linked to the ANBU, and nothing bad's going to happen to them, or they're not and this'll get them out of our way. Now lead on, we're going back in. We need to find an entry point the ANBU can use. Going back inside, the many clones followed the new Usagi back to the cafeteria, then spread up to cover more ground, trying to find the main exit. They hadn't even found one when Izumi messaged them all. Following his directions, the group ended up in a sealed room with a pit in the middle. There was a rancid odor all over the place. What's that smell? Zuko messaged using his paws. Nezumi simply pointed down at the pit. The group went down to see what was hidden in the darkness. After a moment to let their eyes adjust, they cringed as they realized what was inside this hole. Corpses. Especially kids' corpses. Some of them still had broken masks on, testament to what they'd been before their deaths. Not NBU, Zuka messaged, and everyone nodded at that. To work, he then indicated, and everyone ran back up, full of rage and anger. The next message was unfortunately accompanied with something the clones did not want. An alarm. Damn it! Usagi said inside. Below him, the false ANBU started running around like someone had kicked over their anthill. He received a burst of memories coming from a clone using their copy of the ANBU's blue flashbang, then another as a second clone did the same. Seeing explosive tags being placed on the walls, he quickly sent a message out with that as the last memory. The message was clear. Escape now. In the end, only 6 of the clones made it out. The entrances they'd found were now crawling with ANBU, who would unfortunately have some difficulty finding anything. Demolition charges had blown those entrances up, and a few of the clones had seen members of the false ANBU escape through secret exits hidden in the walls as the place exploded. The group went to an alley and transformed back once it was sure the place was clear. What now? Nezumi asked. Well, whoever they were, abandoning a base like that one has to have put a wrench in their plans, the leader said. The network should be safe for a while. You really think this is over? Maru asked. Zuka shook his head. No. We're not that lucky. That's just round 1, he said. But we'll at least have a period of calm after this. Those saboteurs and thieves will have other things in mind in the coming days. We'll have to keep our guard up, sure, but the network should be able to rest a little. The rest of the troop nodded. They'd won the first battle now, they simply needed to keep that advantage. Prank Day 104. Between his normal work and the Chunin exams, it had taken nearly 3 weeks before the Hokage could get to Irika and Kuratori's request for a trap specialist. It took another week before the selective was back in Konoha. As such, a week before the end of the Chunin examinations, Sarutobi Hiruzen, Tekuno Kenden, and 2 accompanying ANBU members were found standing before the former Kaihotiki compound. So, you requested an evaluation of this place? The Hokage asked. Kuratori nodded. Indeed. Yumano-sen, he then nodded to his compatriot. Demanded the help of an unrated trap specialist for this year's stealth and trap avoidance exam. Both he and I went through the course after the students, and neither of us managed to get through unscathed. The both of us were curious as to what rank should be given to our specialist. Explains my presence, at least, Tekuno said, cracking his fingers. Want me to run the gauntlet, I suppose? Correct, Kuratori answered. Please remember, though, that this place was built to test people. As such, the difficulty rises with how far one goes. There's also nothing lethal in the building. So forget the power to focus on placement, variety, and the like. He nodded. I get it. Then I'll let you go, Irika said, tossing the scroll. The goal of the exercise was to grab a scroll like this one. Good luck. One doesn't need luck when one has skill, Tekuno replied with a smirk. Hopefully it'll be at least something of a challenge, he said as he entered the building. Everyone watched him go. Given that the both of you are teachers at the academy, and that this place's creator is unranked, I suppose the author is the person I am thinking of, correct? The Hokage said, looking straight at Irika. You have the right person in mind, Hokage-sama, the Chunin answered. At this, the Hokage smiled. Then, for once, I will see the results of someone else that actually asked for it. I've seen enough of his skill to appreciate when someone else comes to bat. Both Chunin and even one of the ANBU nodded at that, keeping the house in sight. There was no noise coming from it, but that might not mean anything. It took 10 minutes before the man came back out. Well, that is one sneaky bastard, the man said, whistling. I seem to see some orange on the side of your shirt that wasn't there before, the Hokage pointed out, his lips curling up. I seem to remember you having sandals on your feet when you went in, Irika added with a smirk. Beside him, Kuratori was unnaturally rigid, something that clued people to the fact that the man was hiding his emotions. Ha ha ha, the said blankly. Go ahead, laugh. I just want whoever built this here. I have some questions about how he managed some of those traps. First, the rank you'd give if you would? Sarutobi said, now serious. Difficult to say, actually, he turned to the 2 Chunin. I'm correct when I say there's no chakra used in those traps, right? Outside the false explosive traps, yes, Irika answered. Those were nice. Not well drawn, but nice, Takuno said with a nod. He'd worked enough with explosive tags that he could spot a fake a mile away. Thing is, I can't rank him because there are no chakra traps. If chakraless trapping existed as a speciality, the man would be Jonin level at least, but he's missing half of the required material for a trap mastery. If whoever it is picks that up, he'll be Jonin level there right quick. He thought for a moment. Probably better than that, even. His trap placement is mean, effective, and plays on psychology efficiently. That last pit trap of his would have gotten most of those who managed it through. I only dodged it because of what I could read in his trapping methods. He looked around. Now can I meet this enigmatic trap master? Iruka went to the door. Naruto, come out. Minute, came the boy's voice, and 60 seconds later he came out. Traps are reset, if someone else wants to try his luck. Your Takuno said, then he folded in half, laughing. I'd heard rumors the ANBU were having problems hunting you, and now I can believe it, he said between guffaws. They must have hated your guts for some of those. Speaking of ANBU, Horizon started, turning toward his two guards. The both of them went rigid. It is a valid test for ANBU, don't you think? The speed at which they shook their heads clearly indicated that they didn't think so. That was an order, in case I was misunderstood, the Hokage said, now quite serious. The two ANBU's hands flashed out in some form of communication, going too fast to be followed. After 10 seconds, the head of the one on the left fell slightly, and he walked toward the building. When he came back, he was also sandalless, and his suit was orange at crotch level. No words were said, but the looks of those watching said it all. Naruto didn't even notice, having an emphatic discussion on trap triggers with Takuno. Prank Day 107. There's 3 days left before the day of the tournament, Naruto said, looking straight at Hinata opposite him. So here's the plan for the time that's left. The last day's free, to make sure you'll be as rested as possible for the main event. The day before that, we'll go over equipment, planning and the like. Nothing strenuous. The blonde boy smiled. Today's sparring. All out. Against me. How is that different from the previous days? Hinata asked. The last week had been full contact sparring, ever since she'd gotten proficient enough with the various that were part of the Matsuri. You're facing the real thing this time, Naruto explained, smirking. It took a moment for Hinata to realize what that meant. Naruto? She stuttered, lowering her face to hide the blush coming up. She'd gotten used over time to the clones, and had managed to stop blushing instantly from their presence. Clearly, the real Naruto still had an effect. Yes, the boy said with a smile. It isn't the first time I come over. I was the one who helped you with the Mabushii Kagayaki, and I also looked at a few of your spares with the other clones. Hinata just blushed redder. Now I'll be doing something special for the first few matches, just to get you ready for the real thing, Naruto explained. There will be a special rule for those matches. I touch you, you lose. Hinata looked back up a little. Why that? As an answer, Naruto did the ram seal, turning into someone completely different. Fate may have brought you here, Hinata-sama, but it will lead you no further, Naruto as Niji said, in a very credible imitation of the branch house member's speech. He then took a pose similar to the first stance of the gentle fist. Come face the defeat that is your inevitable destiny, he continued, winking at her. She gulped. She understood now the reason for the rule. He wanted to prepare her as best as he could for what she would face in the arena. She couldn't give up now, especially not with Naruto looking at her. I'm ready, she said, taking the wide-armed stance she'd found best for the Matsuri. This battle's results are preordained, Naruto answered, dashing forward, upon which time the battle was joined. The first spar went fast, as did the second. The third lasted 5 times as long. By the 5th, Hinata was fighting as she'd done in the previous day's spar. By the 7th, she was even bantering back somewhat. Naruto smiled and sighed as the 9th battle started. Hinata would do just fine in the arena, he could tell. Prank Day 108. Iruka was taking a breather, having tried once again to generate a single Kage Bunshin. He had new appreciation of his student's stamina. A couple of attempts had him down for the count. This was only the second day's training he managed to get with Naruto, and he hadn't yet made much progress on the technique. He did, however, manage a good spar against both a katana-wielding Naruto and an unarmed Muramaru, which was more of a challenge than he'd expected. And he was a chunin, while Naruto wasn't even an official ninja yet. So, how are ninjutsu studies going? The teacher asked as he rested, recovering his chakra. Any issues? We're getting better, Naruto answered, not deviating from his sword kata. Beside him, Muramaru was doing his own kata, while Ariko was throwing shurikens at a target. She was already the best in her class with kunai, and she wanted all the thrown weapons nailed. Well, the clones are, mainly. Do tell, the chunin asked. The clones are down to 9 usable clones when using the technique, while I have to go with 15 if I want to use the normal ones instead of the Kage Bunshin, Naruto replied. Explain. Naruto scratched the back of his head. It's you remember my clones from the last exam? Irika nodded. Well, look. The blonde did the hand seals for the technique multiple times, and the clones appeared in waves. First I had 2 who instantly crouched down sick, and every wave after that was double the quantity and looked better than the previous. By the 4th, the clones were normal and didn't even react in any way. So, basically Irika asked for confirmation. You're working your way down instead of up. Naruto nodded energetically. How about the other techniques? The teacher asked. Kawarimi is something we use so much by now, it's nearly instinctual for clones, the student answered. I still have some issues with it, but only for really short distances, like a meter or less. And the current record in kilometers is around 8 by now. That's Irika started then stopped. That's preposterous, that's what it was. Show me. Naruto took a deep breath, then switched on his other side, about 2 meters away. Why are you switching with air? Outside switching with someone whose chakra opposed yours, it was the most difficult and intensive usage of the technique. I find it easier actually, especially when switching close, Naruto explained. You're clearly still using way too much chakra then, the teacher noted. Yeah, Naruto replied, waving him off. I'm working on it. Now you're gonna try again or you're gonna stay down on the floor until you fall asleep? He smirked. I'm not giving up, Irika replied, recognizing the words for the encouragement they gave. Just as a last question, are you busy on the day of the tournament? Depends on your definition of busy, but why? Naruto answered. As an academy teacher, I have a seat reserved and can bring someone else with me, Irika explained. Mind hanging around your teacher on a day off? Naruto smiled. Of course not. I'd be happy to go with you. He then thought for a moment. Well, technically I'll already be there, but I wouldn't mind going as Naruto. Kiritori is bringing Muramaru, I suppose? The teacher put it out. And the Konoha Fashion Ninja have 7 seats in their name, which includes Ariko, Naruto added. At least, with luck, that'll mean I'll have 3 different viewpoints of Hinata beating her cousin. How's she doing then? Irika said. Anything I should look out for? Naruto looked his teacher straight in the eyes. Wait, and you'll see at the tournament. Now enough chattering, or I'll send you in the corner with a dunce hat. Back to work, student. Hi, Uzumaki-sensei, Irika answered with a smirk, making the cross seal with his hands. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Prank Day 110, last stage of the Chunin exam. Naruto? Irika asked in front of the boy's door, having just knocked. Come in. Come in. The academy student chimed from inside his apartment. The Chunin stepped inside, having a quick look around. The many clones had months ago taken everything they found down in the Uruhara basement, and Irika now saw his student's living place as it normally was. Not so bad, he thought. He'd expected worse. His own place, living alone as a child, wasn't as clean as this one. There were a number of ninja tools everywhere, including 2 kunai used to hold plants up. Still, no clothes on the ground, food boxes outside the trash, or anything like that. I'm nearly done, Naruto said, taking a big portion of noodles from his cup. Irika sighed. Only Naruto would consider 3 cups of ramen a valid breakfast. The teacher took a seat opposite his student. You ready? Naruto nodded, mouth full of food. Are your students ready too? He then inquired. Naruto swallowed. As much as she can, he said once he could talk again. I'll have an errand to do before we get to the arena, but that's all. It can't wait? We might be late if you aren't quick enough, Iruka pointed out. Naruto drained his last cup of ramen. Has to be done before the battles start, he replied, moving for his window. You coming? The window? Iruka asked, tilting his head. Well, we're in a hurry, aren't we? He pointed to the open window. That's a shortcut. Right, Iruka sighed, rising out of his seat. The pair dropped straight down in the alley, then continued below in the tunnels. Naruto's errand involved passing by the Uruhara basement. The Chunin wasn't surprised. Naruto clearly wasn't wasting time. The pair of them went straight to the basement at a good clip, and a clone handed Naruto a package as soon as he was inside the room. The boy then made his way deeper into the place. What are you doing? Iruka asked. He thought they were in and out in a moment. Follow me, the boy said. We're taking another exit. It'll get us closer to the arena. Iruka nodded and followed. He stayed behind his student, imitating the twists and turns Naruto made in the dark. Then came a long ladder going up, where Naruto stopped. He then started doing hand seals. Here, he explained, touching Iruka right above his nose. This'll help us not draw attention. He then repeated the seals to do the same on himself. What is it? The teacher asked. Genjutsu, Naruto answered, touching his own brow. Makes you appear as something completely normal. Iruka had never heard of such a. Another one from the scroll of forbidden seals? He asked. No, Naruto replied, starting to climb. Rabbit technique. Nanabo taught it to me. Come on up. The Chunin had more questions, but now wasn't the time for them. He didn't know how much longer Naruto's errand would take, but they'd probably be cutting it close. He grabbed the first rung and started climbing, making a note to follow up on that line of questioning later. Here, Mahoshi said, pointing to an empty row of seats. That's perfect, right? It will do very well, Fumichi replied. Ariko had to agree. They were close enough to the battlefield that they wouldn't miss much, and right beside an exit with that, just in case they needed the restrooms or something similar. Better yet, they were situated nearly opposite to where Kiritori and Miromaru were, which would mean the clones would remember the action from two opposite viewpoints at the very least. Iruka and Naruto weren't yet in, as he was having a last-minute visit to perform. The False Academy student sat down, with Fumichi at her left and Ringo at her right. So, how's this going to go? She asked. First time seeing one of these? Asano asked, to which the Naruto Bunshin nodded. Kids, even academy students, couldn't come alone, even if they had tickets. Mahoshi's mother was the group chaperone this time. Does anyone here have the order of battles? She asked the others. Nishi handed her her own leaflet. There's 11 battles planned for the day, Asano said, looking down at the schedule. First up is the 2 Hyuga, which should mean a quick taijutsu battle, she explained. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Ariko nodded. At least they wouldn't have to wait before seeing Hinata's training put to the test. Next after that is Nara against. She looked at the descriptions of the fighter. A throwing specialist? Well, Naras are all about planning, so this one might go long or short depending on the latter's plan. Mahoshi and Fumichi both inclined their heads at that, as if from experience. Ariko, who knew Shikamaru, expected long. Short would probably be too much effort. Then there's an Aburame against a Sand Wind Mistress, Asano continued. Advantage to Sand, clearly, Nishi pointed out. Ariko was pretty sure the name Shino was somehow familiar, but could remember who that was for the life of her. Last battle of the first round is a taijutsu specialist named Rock Lee against someone named Gara. She once again went to check the description. Sand manipulator, it says here. Very powerful from what is written. Again, advantage to Sand, Nishi added. Then there's a 30-minute break before the second round, Asano finished, closing the schedule. That's all? Ariko asked. Only 4 battles? She was pretty sure Choji and Kiba were in the tournament, so where were they? There are a lot of ninjas not fighting in the first round this time, Matoto, Mahoshi's mother, pointed out. Second round also has 4 battles, then 2 for third with only the final remaining after that. A third of the participants don't fight in the first round. Asano nodded in approval. Ariko had a quick look around, and didn't see her progenitor anywhere. Where was he anyhow? The fights were starting soon. Here they are, Hinata-sama, Naruto said, disguised as a random Hyuga. Another 20, he continued, handing her a storage scroll. Her eyes went wide. That makes more than 200, she exclaimed. Indeed, Naruto replied. 207 to be exact. Hinata lowered her head and blushed. Thank you? It is my pleasure, Hinata-sama, the fake Hyuga said, bowing. I will leave you to your preparations. Good luck in battle. Naruto then turned and walked out. What he just handed her were the last chakrams the clone network had received in the last 2 days. It made her full loadout of more than 200 of her discs, 3 soldier pills, that being the maximum recommended in a day, and 10 shadow clones stored in scrolls. The last one was a new discovery made after the network clones had tried to reconstruct what had happened a week ago. Turns out clones could be sealed, and that they don't spend chakra, or spend very little, while stored. This also makes them impossible to update, as memory bursts don't reach them. That was the reason this particular detail had been found, as Usagi was missing 4 hours of his day, even when the sleeping clones didn't. There was a group currently doing more tests, but they knew enough for that to be at least usable. It was even more important for Hinata, as she didn't have the capacity to generate shadow clones willy. Naruto then stepped in the closest washroom, coming back out under his normal appearance. Irika stepped beside him as he arrived in the bleachers. So, errand done? Naruto nodded. Nothing I should have opposed, I hope? The teacher asked. Nothing illegal, Naruto replied. Just getting Hinata the remaining pieces of equipment the network received. So she needs equipment for whatever technique you taught her, eh? The Chunin stated. Not saying anything, Naruto exclaimed. You just can't let it go, can you? He then added. What? Irika said, shrugging. A man has the right to be curious, you know. She's in the first fight, so you won't have to wait long, Naruto smirked. Ariko had updated him on the schedule. You'll see she'll do well. I'll reserve judgment until then, Irika replied, sitting down. Thank you everyone for coming to Konoha's Chunin selection exam. The Hokage's voice rang all over the stadium as Naruto took his own seat. We will now start the main tournament matches between the 12 participants who made it through until now. Please stay, and watch until the end. Won't be long now, Naruto said as the referee explained the rules to the 12's genin in the arena. He could clearly be heard by everyone due to the acoustics of the place. The first fight will be between Hyuga Niji and Hyuga Hinata, the referee finally said. The rest of you, please stay in the waiting room until called. The other genin all left, leaving only the 2 Hyugas in the arena. Now, the first fight. The referee yelled. Begin! Begin! Hinata didn't wait a second, jumping back twice to put more space between her and her cousin. He let her do so, not even taking a fighting stance. Hinata-sama, please surrender, he said, loud and clear. Someone of your skill cannot defeat me. Talent is something that is decided at the moment one is born, and all the spars we have had only proven the fact that I am your superior. Your fate in this tournament goes no farther than this match. Hinata smiled hearing that. She'd heard something similar from Naruto for an entire day, and the words only reminded her of the steps she'd made. She was no longer the person she'd been a month ago. Fate or not, cousin, I do not care, she replied clearly. I will make you dance, she intoned. She did another jump back, dropping a smoke grenade at the same time. She then reached into her pockets, and withdrew the scrolls she had there. Pathetic, she heard her cousin say. As if that would stop a Hyuga. Her simple smile did not falter. The smoke wasn't to hamper Niji, it was to hide her actions. A simple release of chakra, and there were 10 more Hinatas in the cloud. 3 stepped before and behind her, then they split into 2 groups, 5 running out on each side while a clone stayed in her former position. She, the real one, was the 3rd exiting the cloud on the right. What? She heard Niji say. He finally took on a combat stance. Then she and all the clones started filling the air with metal. Each tossed chakrams in waves of 6, 3 from each hand. Niji, all the while, was looking from right to left, trying to figure out which one was real. Then he started dodging and blocking. He drew a kunai in each hand and deflected the few rings coming close to his position. There weren't many, as the many copies hadn't started aiming properly, just adding to the chaos of the arena. Ineffective, he said, redirecting 2 chakrams. Your skills at aiming are no better than your ability at the gentle fist. We will see, all the clones said as one. As one, they stopped moving, the many Hinatas forming a half circle around Niji, 20 or so meters away. Only then did they start really calculating the various bounces to hit. Niji blocked another 2, then dodged another. Then 2 more. They redirected a pair while dodging another. What is this? He yelled. He found that he couldn't advance, the weapon's many crisscrossing paths giving him no way to step forward. He batted 2 more away. This is the Festival of Rings, dear cousin, all the clones said once more. Now dance for me. Hinata mentally thanked Naruto's help with her banter. It was clear the words were not helping Niji focus. The Hyuga boy quickly had no choice. He took a step back diagonally. Then he turned, stepping left, blocking a single chakram arriving straight at his back. Then another turn, another step, another block. And the many Hinatas were still throwing chakrams around. They had their timing well. As their last wave of chakrams left their hands, the returning rings started coming in range. They still had more in reserve, but kept those as backup. They grabbed and twirled, sending the weapons back seemingly effortlessly. Some went straight toward their foe, some went toward the walls to bounce there, and others were sent back right into the melee, deviating off some of the weapons already in flight. That was the drop that made the vase overflow. A thrown chakram bounced the ring that Niji had just redirected right back at the boy. He twisted out of the way at the last second, but couldn't evade a thin cut to the side of the neck, bleeding slowly. First blood had gone to the Hyuga heir. Niji made a decision right there and, as he twirled, a rotating sphere of chakra surged around him. Every weapon close to him was deflected instantly, bouncing back with incredible force. Still, only a couple came close to the clones, and a twirl later they were on their way back toward Niji. Kaiten, the many Hinatas said. She'd been afraid he'd master such a technique. He was clearly talented enough. But she was prepared for something like that. That is nice, cousin. But how long can you keep it up? As soon as the sphere disappeared, Niji tossed himself to the side. One ring scored a glancing hit on his arm, but he dodged the rest of the incoming projectiles. He then had no choice but to invoke the Kaiten again, just to survive. He then kept it up. He had no other option, being relentlessly attacked from all sides. 3 clones each grabbed a pair of rings as they passed by. What is a festival without flowers, cousin? They said, interlocking the 2 chakrams. All 3 twirled them 3 times, dodging the few rings coming their way while the others redirected the rest. Lotus flower, bloom! The trio exclaimed, sending the paired weapons straight ahead, spinning like saws. And they were spinning in the same direction as the Kaiten. The rings hit the rotating barrier at full speed. The first ring which hit didn't reach deep enough to touch Niji before being propelled back. But what it did was spin around the second, coming back with the force of the Kaiten behind him. Niji realized that fact right before the rings returned, and threw himself to the side to dodge the blooming lotuses. He took a few hits to his arms and chest, but managed to protect his face. He then rolled, taking another cut, then dashed forward at his full speed, straight for the middle Hinata, who had just thrown a set of paired rings at him. He took a few more hits, mainly to the side and back. But he quickly arrived in Hinata's melee range, and slammed his kunai straight into her heart. She vanished into smoke, and 100 rings, being cloned, disappeared from the air. That was a killing blow, Niji! The Hinatas shouted, this time not in perfect coordination. The shock had gotten to some of them. Indeed, Hinata-sama, he said, and the smile on his face was vicious. He deflected the few rings coming his way. What is a ninja if he cannot kill? Nothing, that is what. I am not like you, too weak to go against my foe with killing intent. This is why you are weak, shinobi. He dodged then blocked 2 more rings as the clones started moving away, releasing more chakrams to try keeping the Hyuga boy at bay. Even now you do not go for a decisive blow, preferring to wait until your opponent tires himself. Another dash and another Kage Bunshin was eliminated, this one with a kunai straight to the eye. The branch member didn't even take any damage this time. The memory of the blade coming right her eye shook her out of her shock. You should not have done that, Niji. You will regret it. Make me, he growled, dashing at the Hinata who had just spoken. Bird dragon, reverse snake, reverse rat. Raitun, Mabushii Kagayaki. Hinata yelled, her cousin only 2 meters or so from her. He fell straight there, dropping face first to the ground. My eyes! He screamed, covering his face. 2 of the clones stepped forward, grabbing the chakrams coming close and keeping them. Hinata herself looked down at her cousin. He'd gone straight for a killing blow when he could have gone for something lesser. He deserved what he'd got. Proctor? She said. Do I need to finish him? Of course not, he said, stepping forward while dodging an errant ring. He then looked down at Niji, who was stumbling unseeingly on the ground. Winner, Hyuga Hinata! He yelled. The audience cheered. The real Hinata went and bowed, straight toward Naruto's seat first, then to where her father was seated. Her clones grabbed the still bouncing chakrams and collected them. It was her victory. An unexpected event, Kuratori said from his seat. How come? Miramaro replied. He really knew why, but he had to pretend he didn't. Niji is well known in taijutsu circles to have the greatest potential as a gentle fist user in this generation, the Chunin explained. And he proved it just now, performing the kaiten at such a young age. So he should have won, Miramaro said. No, Kuratori answered, shaking his head. The younger Hyuga's tactics were better. She created an environment that advantaged her and disadvantaged her opponent, controlled the flow of the battle, and forced her foe to deal with her on her terms. Even in the end, when things went sour, she still had a card she could play. No, the victory was all hers. So, Niji should have taken back the initiative earlier then? The male clone asked. He should never have let Hinata have it, he countered. He was secure in his superiority from the start, and let her set up her trap without even trying to oppose her. He was clearly faster than her, so he should have attacked right as the referee said go. He would have had the advantage, as this would have played to his strengths, and could have eliminated her quickly. He sighed. His arrogance was his undoing. What about the next match? Miramaro said. A Nara, which means a shadow specialist, against a range weaponry specialist. Another battle where one should strike hard right from the start, the teacher said. The Nara are efficient strategists, so giving them time to plan is the worst thing that can be done. The second battle. Tenten versus Nara Shikamaru. The proctor yelled. Begin! I'm not going to give you the time to outhink me, Tenten said, dropping a pair of scrolls on the floor. Twin rising dragons. The scrolls went up in a spiral, trailing smoke, and she jumped between them. Then she grabbed whatever weapons she could from the scroll, shooting them forward at high speed. Clearly, she had access to the same knowledge I did, Kuratori said. Shikamaru, of course, didn't sit still. He jumped backward a few times, getting more space between him and Tenten, then started dodging and running erratically. Still, Tenten's aim only became better as the seconds passed, and the Nara boy's dodges became more and more frantic. Then he grabbed a kunai coming at his face and stopped. What is he doing? Miramaro said, watching intently. Tenten did not say a word, reaching with her right hand for another weapon. Shikamaru's hand imitated hers, and once she had the shuriken in hand, he moved his hand to his throat, Tenten emulating him. Kagemain, success, he said tonelessly. Tenten fell back down to the ground and landed improperly, due to her legs still being under Shikamaru's control. How? She yelled from her position on the arena floor. She still had a shuriken to her throat. Their shadows might be so small as to be nearly invisible, but ninja wire still casts some, as minimal as it is, Shikamaru explained. Every time you were sending a weapon at me, you were giving me a direct line to your shadow. After that, the only thing I needed to do was grab one of your weapons, and you were done. He waved the kunai he still held. Now, will you surrender or do we need to continue? The kunoichi grit her teeth. I surrender, she spat out, clearly unhappy with the results. Winner, Nara Shikamaru. The proctor confirmed. Well, you were right about it being short, Fumichi said. That's difficult to beat in terms of length. Hi, Ariko replied. She'd personally thought long, and something completely different than what happened. She'd actually seen Shikamaru running, and that was something she'd not thought possible. Nara tricked his opponent, for sure, but she hadn't expected Shikamaru to do something that could actually make him sweat. She'd thought he'd surrender before something like that happened. Now's the Abirame against the girl from Sand, correct? Asano asked Nishi, who'd taken back her schedule. Hi, the girl said. That fight started barely a minute later, and the best way to describe it would be keep away. The two combatants had put a long distance between the two of them, and they traded pot shots. On the Suna girl's side, she sent wave after wave of wind at the Abirame, Shino, she now remembered, at best hitting a bug clone. Her opponent replied with kunai and shuriken, sometimes with explosive tags, but she deflected them handily. This one is gonna be long, Mihoshi whined. Everyone nodded in agreement, even her mother. And it was. That stalemate lasted for a good 15, 20 minutes, at which moment the Wind Mistress fell to her knees. How? She yelled, and everyone in the arena could hear her. You were under an illusion for the entire match, Shino replied, face blank. Why did you not notice, you ask? Because the illusion didn't hide anything at first. While we were trading attacks, I sent small numbers of my bugs forward, hidden under the. You were slowly being drained of your chakra. Damn you! She cried, swiping her fan forward. Nothing happened. My bugs have drained every last bit of your reserves, and you sent the rest at me uselessly, Abirame continued. That was my trump card, and you didn't notice it until it was too late. Damn, she started, trying to move forward. She then fell flat on her face, unconscious. Winner, Abirame Shino, the referee said, while the ninja bowed to the audience. There weren't that many cheers, not with how long the fight had been, but there was still some. Rigid clapping, along with a buzzing of some kind, came from the region the Abirame clan was seated in. You go, Shino! Naruto yelled. It had Irika reminding him of Abirame's seat in class before he remembered who he was. That made 3 members of his last class to pass, and none eliminated yet. A good battle, Irika confirmed. You saw how he did that. He tricked her, Naruto answered. Actually, they all did. They created a way to win and took it. Yes, the teacher confirmed. They used tactics to give themselves a path to victory. That's the way it mainly goes in shinobi battles. The one who outplans his adversary is generally the winner. The big blasting techniques are nice, but often a single knife is enough, if used at the right moment. Then why are the best-known ninjas the powerful ones, instead of the brightest ones and the like? Naruto asked, curious. Because there are also big defenses, and sometimes you need to punch through them, Irika explained. Also, the bigger attack techniques tend to be widespread, and do damage to more than a single person. Even if half the enemy army dodges or survives your technique, that's still one half you no longer have to deal with. So every technique has its moment, Naruto summarized. Correct, the teacher said with a smile and a nod. If there's one thing you should remember about this tournament, it is that. Even powerful techniques have weaknesses, and if they get turned against you, the dangers are just greater. He shook his head. Anyway, if you want to see a match of power, look no further. He pointed down at the arena. The 4th and last match of the first round. Sabaku no Gaara against Rock Lee. The proctor yelled. That's gonna be a power match? Naruto inquired. Rock Lee is a taijutsu-only ninja, the Chunin explained. He's a brute stronger and faster than a lot of. He's not stupid and he studies hard, but he really has only a single tool, hitting something harder. And from what I understand, sand manipulation is the only thing Gaara can do, though he is deadly about it. It's going to be fist against sand, and the strongest will probably win. Begin, the referee said. At the very second, Lee dashed back, clearing 10 meters easily before turning back toward Gaara. Mother wants your blood, Gaara screamed, and a wave of sand rose in front of him, growing as it went toward Lee. The boy didn't seem scared. Kaimon, Kumon, Simon, Shumon, Tomon, came on, the boy invoked clearly. Kai. By then, the wave was barely a meter away. Morning Peacock. Lee disappeared right there as the wave fell where he'd been. Tracking his movement wasn't difficult, as he left a trail of flames on the ground. He appeared right inside Gaara's guard, instantly kicking the Suna boy straight in the air. The blow resonated all over the arena. But that wasn't all. The taijutsu master reappeared beside his foe at the apex of his uncontrolled flight. There, he started punching Gaara repeatedly, fire blossoming on his arms as he did so. Naruto turned to his teacher. "But you just told me he didn't use ninjutsu?" he said. "That's not ninjutsu," the Chunin confirmed. "That's pure taijutsu, pure speed. He's going fast enough that the friction from the very air starts fires." Iruka had never seen the technique, but had heard about it. And performed by a genin no less? Those who said Lee wasn't a genius in his own right should have stayed quiet. Naruto said nothing, eyes wide. A final haymaker finally sent Gaara back down, pushing him at least a meter deep in the arena floor. The Konoha genin then followed the boy back down, pulling him back out of the floor, as if to continue the battle. But it wasn't Gaara who came out. It was a formless mass of sand, slowly growing, halfway covering the boy. An arm of sand went straight at Lee, but he kicked the creature off, straight into one of the arena walls. By the way Gaara was screaming, he clearly wasn't in control of whatever that creature was. And at that time, everything happened instantly. Feathers appeared everywhere in the stadium, twirling hypnotically in the air. A single look nearly sent Naruto asleep, but a command from Iruka still came through. "Surge your chakra, as strong as you can, now!" the teacher yelled. Groggy, he still did as told. Iruka had a good reason for whatever he asked, most of the time. He pushed out a wave of chakra as strong as he could, and the grogginess disappeared instantly, as did the feathers. An illusion, he now realized. Shaking his head, Naruto had a look around. There was fighting right in the stands, disguises falling off to reveal ninjas underneath. Most of them had the sand hourglass there, but a good number had the sound music note instead. He then dodged a thrown shuriken. That cleared his mind. Iruka, beside him, threw a kunai straight in a sound ninja's eyes. This wasn't the time to hold back. As much as he wanted the fact that he could perform the shadow clone technique to be a secret, he wanted his village safe infinitely more. "Kage Bunshin no!" he yelled, filling every open space within 20 meters with a clone. They all jumped into action, rushing at the invading ninja. They died in droves, but better than Konoha villagers. And he wasn't done. "No, Monty!" he yelled, slamming his hands on the ground. He'd have gone with the leader, but he still wasn't certain to manage it on the first try. And Miyamoto had said that Monty was the rabbit who liked battle the most. The tiny white rabbit appeared right between his hands. Naruto didn't waste any time. "Hourglass, music note," he said, pointing on his brow where the usual ninja headband resided. "They go down. Go!" Monty vanished. Half a second later, the sand ninja who'd been about to stab Iruka in the back lost his neck with a quick pop as the only clue to Monty's passage. The invasion had just begun. Prank Day 110, last stage of the Chunin exam. Kai! Muramaru woke up instantly as his mentor's chakra washed over him. For a second, he didn't know who he was supposed to be or where he was, but then his memories caught up, and he remembered what had happened. Genjutsu. Jumping to his feet, Muramura thanked whoever was listening that the Naruto clones were made more solidly than normal Kage Bunshin. Vanishing right now would have been the worst way for Kuritori to learn about the prank. The clone then dodged to the side as a burst of wind shattered the seat he'd been on, then crouched under a wave of shuriken. "Sensei," he yelled, drawing a set of kunai and throwing them right at the three shinobi fighting Kuritori. Two dodged backwards while the third blocked, and the teacher used the opening to cut the man's leg off at the ankle using his own foot. "Leave!" Kuritori yelled, pushing aside the first sand ninja's sword strike. "This is no place for a student. Withdraw to the shelters immediately." Like hell he was. He was a clone, so he wasn't risking anything by staying and fighting. He wasn't going to take someone else's spot and hide. "I can fight," he yelled back, reaching for more kunai. "No," he said, jumping back. He then pushed Muramaru out of the way, taking in the shoulder at the same time. It would have hit Muramaru, and he hadn't even noticed it. I am your master, and this is an order, the Chunin said, ripping out the with one hand while disarming the second sand ninja with his foot. Leave! I can P. Muramaru started, only to stop as Kuritori put his foot at the clone's belly, making it stick there. He then wound up for a kick, and released Muramaru at full extension. The false academy student sailed in the air for a second, managing to land properly using the tree walking technique. He'd landed only a meter or so from an exit, and his master could no longer be seen with all the fighting that was going on. His face tensed as he dashed through the exit. He wasn't going to get in Kuritori's way, but he wasn't going to run either. This was Konoha, his precious village, and he was going to fight to the death to protect it. Pain was what woke her up. Ariko's hand instinctively reached for her hurt ear, only to find Ichibo there. Why did he bite me? She wondered. He'd mostly been silent during the entire tournament, so she had no clue what could have made him do something like that. Then the last few minutes came back to her, and she shot up in a flash. Up, quick! Mihoshi yelled beside her, slapping Ringo awake. You two are the last, she told them. Ariko quickly looked around. There was fighting all around her, and a wall of earth rose beside them, cutting them off from a trio of sound ninja. She quickly realized what had happened, and reminded herself to thank Naruto for making his clones this resistant. She then snapped her left thumb and pinky together, a thank you to the bunny who'd taken back his spot on the top of her head. My pleasure, Ichibo quickly messaged back with a trio of thumps. Everyone, to the exit! Matoto yelled, throwing a pair of kunai at the ninja who just tried climbing over her earth wall she just summoned. We need to get to the shelters, quickly! Mihoshi started handing everyone shuriken. Ariko shook her head, withdrawing her own. As a Naruto clone in the academy, she'd made sure she was always fully equipped. Especially in throwing weapons, which was her official specialty. Their region of the area seemed to have less combat than the others, and as such the group had no difficulty reaching one of the exits. Look behind, Ichibo messaged as the Bunshin was about to enter one of the exits. Ariko did so, and saw Lee there with a pair of, keeping whatever Gaara became busy. The boy clearly had seen better days, and was breathing quite hard, but still fought with all the power he had before. Ariko had a new appreciation of taijutsu at the sight. Following Matoto, the Konoha fashion ninja ran straight out the building. Only a single enemy interrupted their course, but with Fumichi and Nishi backing Matoto, the lonely sound ninja was barely a speed bump. And then they were outside. It wasn't much better. There was fighting all over the place, and with the wider spaces bigger techniques could be heard or seen all over. A trio of giant snakes had broken through the wall, and were slowly going straight for the Hokage Tower, destroying everything in their path. Doton, Dorihiki! Matoto yelled. A wall appeared right in the middle of the street, blocking a giant wind blast coming from a shinobi on the rooftops. The ninja didn't wait, jumping down to the side to get a new line of attack. He never got it. Gutsuga! Kiba yelled, coming out of an alley spinning like a drill. The sound shinobi, in midair, couldn't dodge, and was hit severely before falling further down the road. He didn't get up. Other genin from his former class made their way out of the alley, along with a number of civilians. Shino, Shikamaru, Ino and Choji joined Kiba while keeping an eye on their surroundings. You are escorting civilians to the shelter, right? Matoto asked. Right, Mom, Kiba answered with a slightly lecherous smirk. Matoto ignored the look. Girls, you go with them, she ordered, turning toward the Konoha fashion ninja. Keep together, protect each other. I'm going to see if I can help in the arena. She dashed back in. The group joined the genin and the civilians, Ariko hanging at the back. The rest were holding each other close out of fear and apprehension. Ariko would have liked to help, but her current mental state wouldn't help. Ariko didn't feel those emotions. She felt rage. The idea of her village being attacked was filling her with desire to hit something, to kill the invaders. As soon as she wasn't being looked at, she used a quick kawarimi to appear on a rooftop a mile away. She wasn't going to hide in a shelter, even if the rest of her group needed her. She was sorry about abandoning them, but Konoha needed her more. She was going to hunt. And judging by the message Ichibo had just sent, Her passenger was in perfect agreement. Neither Naruto nor his two fake personas had thought of sending an update. As such, it was the death of the first clone, followed by the death of many other clones, that revealed to the Bunshins in the Uruhara basement that the village was being invaded. There were hundreds of clones there, training, resting, reading, planning, eating, and doing a multitude of other activities. Whatever they were doing, the moment the first Bunshin died, they turned in the direction of the arena like a wave, all eyes growing wide. Then the war cries started. "Aura!" a copy screamed, and everyone picked it up. They all rushed toward the exit leading to the arena, hands reaching for weapons. "Stop!" a clone yelled, his voice somehow overriding the great cry. Everyone turns to see a clone, one of the members of the Naruto Council, standing at the spot the Rio 1 normally occupied. "What?" dozens of clones yelled at him. "We all go out like this, the prank is done," he yelled back. "That many clones all at once? Nobody'll be fooled anymore. They'll check everything, and we'll be finished." "You can't be telling us to let this happen?" a clone replied. "Are you crazy?" "Coward!" "I'm going anyway," another said, and many nodded along. "I've got an idea!" one yelled over everyone. He'd been clearly heard, and everyone turned toward him. He did a single ram seal, and took on another shape. It wasn't a form they'd taken previously, but it was perfect for the situation. The council member laughed, doing his own ram seal. "That's exactly what we need. Everyone, follow that example." He then sent an update as soon as he changed shape, in case some hadn't heard. There was a tsunami of ram seals as everyone took on a new look. The clones weren't exactly similar, though they all followed the same pattern, which was the very thing that was required. "Now everyone," the council member said. "Create as many clones as you can that are able to fight properly." A series of nods answered him, along with cross seals. "I want half the people here to stay behind, the rest splitting up along the many exits in Konoha." "Why?" one asked. "In case anywhere needs backup," he yelled back. "I need people to get real weapons out, and the map. We need to be ready for anything that could happen. Get the tags out, and start handing them out." All the Bunshins jumped into action. Waves of clones rushed every exit, nearly stepping over each other in their haste. Even the ceilings were filled with copies rushing out. Things went better as the paths split as clones went every way. The attackers better be ready. The clones were coming. Hinata had been in the infirmary, explaining how her blinding technique worked to the medics there, when the first sound ninja got in, weapons drawn. With the mini ninja in the room, he didn't get far, but after the third nearly managed a fireball into the crowded room, it was clear something needed to be done. With everyone there, Hinata couldn't fight at her fullest potential. She looked around as the medics started arguing about what to do, whether to evacuate or stand here. One of them sealed the room, but that wouldn't hold forever, minutes at most. Activating her Byakugan, she looked around. There were side rooms attached in the corners, made for a ninja who needed to be separated from the rest. With what little combat there had been, they were all empty. With the training she'd just gone through, calculating sizes and dimensions came easy, and she quickly had a plan. "Everyone, to the side rooms!" she yelled. The medics turned to her. "Are you crazy? We'll never be able to fight there." She took a deep breath. She could do it. She would do it. "You won't need to," she answered clearly, looking straight at who she thought was the lead medic, right in the eyes. "I'll stay here, to make sure no one gets past this room. I'll fill it with enough steel to make sure no one makes it out." But one medic said, "Go!" Hinata yelled, reaching out in her pockets for her pills. "There's no time. Your medics, you take care of the wounded." Along with the two defeated Leaf Genin, there was a trio of wounded Leaf Ninja. "I'll be defending you." Nobody argued. Some tried cowing her, but her Byakugan eyes were still active, and as such no one could outstare her. "Take the beds, the cabinets, everything. Give me the most room I can have," she yelled. "And take care of my cousin," she added in a lower voice. Regardless of what he might have tried, he was still family. It took a good 2 minutes before the enemy ninja managed to unseal the door, and by that time Hinata was dancing in the middle of a meat grinder, twisting unharmed as steel flew all around her. The first 3 ninjas who entered didn't even have the time to yell before falling to pieces, and the ones following managed to retreat, wounded all over. By the 4th wave, there were enough dead ninjas around the door that the sand and sound shinobi had to jump over the corpses of their allies to gain entrance. Meanwhile, Hinata took a second soldier pill as she spun. None were going to pass, not while she lived. She didn't notice, but along the many dead sound and sand, there was a duo of cloud ninja who'd hoped to capture her alive. They hadn't made it past the door. Like many leaf ninja, Ryukatsu Joji was following the Chunin exam on the radio while hanging at a bar. There was even some betting going around, and he was glad that the odds on the Hyuga heiress victory had been good enough to tempt him. He'd made more than enough to pay for whatever he drank today. Then enemy ninjas started appearing everywhere, and it all went to hell. There had been enough Konoha shinobi in the bar that they'd managed to push back the first attack, but they'd already taken losses. 2 of their number, other Chunin, were severely wounded, and 4 more had lesser wounds. He'd passed through undamaged, but at the rhythm things were going it was only a matter of time. As another sand group reared their head, everyone acted. He tried trapping the whole group in illusionary hands made out of spikes rising from every surface while those in the air were buffeted by fiery ducks, but half the group ignored it. The others tried dodging, but as he'd planned they fell in the paths of the others' attacks. One of the surviving ninjas charged him, and everyone else was busy. He tried a second illusion, opening a false pit in the ground, filled with snakes, wolves and ducks, but the man broke through easily. Then Joji was gone, appearing on a rooftop 20 meters from the action. What? The Konoha ninja said. He hadn't done that. He couldn't yet manage a shushin outside a calm situation. Looking down, he saw that he'd not been the only one who'd changed places. The road in front of the bar was now filled with ninja he'd never seen before instead of his fellow barhoppers. They looked at first glance like A and BU, but there were clear differences. Gone were the animal masks, and instead there were the most bizarre sets of colors and designs on the shinobi's faces. One even had a giant star, purple on yellow, painted right at nose level. Not only that, but each had distinctive hairstyles in bright shades, a powder blue mohawk here, a flowing rainbow there. The ninja who'd taken his place was just as visible, having 2 twirling lime green horns rising from the front of his puce mask and 3 bright pink pigtails hanging from the back. The sand ninja who'd been charging him didn't hesitate, continuing on to strike at his new target. The bizarre Anbu blocked the sword strike with his bare arm, only for the sand shinobi to reach out with his other hand and grab the pink-haired man by the throat. Then the sand ninja screamed, clearly being electrocuted. A second later, the horned Anbu was gone, and the sand shinobi was smoking and twitching on the ground. Around him, the rest of the group was in a similar state. Those that weren't dead were either clearly wounded or blind, judging by their actions, and more of those weird ninjas were standing over them with glowing hands at their backs. Taking his eyes off the road, he realized these ninja were everywhere. He could see some running on walls, sniping at people from rooftops, and jumping straight into the action. Hundreds of them, all over the place. A trio of them at a crossroad went back to back, and a tornado formed around them. Well, he thought as he took a deep breath, he couldn't let them do all the work. Forming hand seals, he focused on a charging sound shinobi, and a wave of illusionary flames surged out of the alleys to rush at that invader. The enemy instantly turned back and ran the other way, not realizing he was going straight toward a spinning whirlwind. Bright eyes appeared on the flaming wave, followed by a giant bill and burning wings. Luckily the shinobi did not turn back, else he might have started disbelieving the illusion. A second later, he was taken and launched by the raging winds. Joji sighed, letting the illusion drop. He really needed to do something about that fear of his. Damn, Kyuha said as another memory flashed before his eyes. He didn't have a name before today, but after he'd taken command of the Naruto Bunshin's counterattack, one had been given to him by the mass. With everyone who had something to say to him, he needed it. He was swearing because the group had just lost another score of clones. Worst was, they'd died without having any effect, trying to drain the 3 massive snakes that were doing urban remodeling of the village. He turned to the massive number of clones that were waiting for orders. Does anyone have an idea how to deal with those giant snakes? Anyone? There was a moment of silence. You've got a heavy firepower team right here. if you need it, someone finally said from deeper in the room. Clones moved, and 6 Narutos came forward, each with a black sphere in their hands. Kyuha dropped right in front of them and scowled. We already tried those, and they don't work well enough. What's so different from the ones you got? He brought the hand holding the sphere in front of him. Mine is 70 days of fire chakra in a ball. The others are around the same. The clone whistled as his eyes widened, then grinned. That might just work. It's just the kind of thing we need right now. He turned to the mass of waiting bunshins. I need 50 clones to go with 3 of these guys. Some of those waiting instantly took disguises while stepping forward. 3? Jigaku, the clone leading those maintaining those balls, asked. Kyuha turned to the maintainers. 3 now, 3 as backup if anything goes wrong. We don't know if there are other summons like that waiting in the wings, and you people can't be replaced easily. The clones nodded. Jigaku pointed at 2 others in his team, then toward the exits. Then he dashed, and dozens of clones followed. They made their way up in record time, those already in the tunnels themselves moving to give passage. The 3 maintainers arrived at ground level to see desolation. Large numbers of the Naruto clones were engaging the 3 snakes in battle. They had no choice, as the sand and sound ninja were using their presence to their advantage, acting as both cover and distraction. While the clones hadn't managed to inflict much noticeable damage to the summons, they had at least managed to keep them somewhat in place. And it was the village itself who suffered. In a circle a few hundred meters in diameter, no building was still standing. Crumbled houses and warehouses dotted the landscape, offering little protection to the ninjas on the ground. Left. Right. His 2 partners yelled, dashing in their respective directions. That leaves me with the center one, Jigaku thought. It was the least damaged of the 3, and the closest to a squad of defending sound ninja. He moved forward slowly, the 15 or so other clones around him spreading out protectively. Now, how to attack? The maintainer wondered. The head was the most valid target, but it was dozens of meters from the ground with no rooftop in range. A Kawarimi might get him up there, but he'd be in freefall if he missed. As he looked for a plan, his target swiped his tail in a circle on the ground, forcing a trio of Konoha ninja hiding behind a junk pile to dodge. One of the 3 jumped straight up, clearing the tail easily, only for the snake's head to lunge forward, mouth open for a quick snack. Jigaku saw the opening and reacted instantly. His hand did a single snake seal, switching with the jumping ninja a bare second before the summon's jaws closed down. He didn't even have the time to release the sphere before being dispersed by the snake's fangs. Not that it made much difference. Only a single second after Jakoga's disappearance, the sphere destabilized and burst, sending the enormous amounts of heat it contained in every direction. The snake's head cooked instantly from the inside, turning into a 10-meter-wide ball of blazing flames. The 2 other maintainers saw their boss technique and copied it, and not a minute later there were 3 small suns burning inside Konoha's walls. The extreme heat quickly turned the neighborhood's climate into one similar to a desert. Fighting stopped for a moment, as everyone turned toward the spheres of fire still hanging in the air, not comprehending that such a thing could happen. Everyone but the Naruto clones, that is. They knew what had just occurred, and they took advantage of the opportunity. They charged forward, jumping straight through the sand and sound defenses while the moment lasted. Surprised and deprived of their giant defenders, the invading forces were quickly pushed back toward the wall. And there were more clones waiting for them there. The first wave of bunshins that had been sent as backup had a specific target: the stadium. As clones burst, Kyuha and his team of dispatchers had frequent updates of the situation in the village. The situation was slowly but surely improving everywhere the clones had eyes, except in one place. In the arena proper. Gaara was there, still fighting Lee along with a pair of who joined in. Unfortunately, as time passed, it was clear they weren't having an effect on the growing sand monster. Worse, Lee was quickly tiring, and it was up to anyone's guess what would happen should he fall. As such, 400 or so clones were sent to defeat or delay whatever that monster was. By now, Gaara was completely covered in sand and invisible. The reinforcements arrived just in time. One of them had just grabbed the fallen Lee and retreated, leaving only a single Konoha ninja in the arena itself. First wave, go! The leading bunshin yelled, and 40 clones surged forward. Some jumped directly at the sand beast, trying to electrocute it to death, while 2 appeared right in front of it to defend him. Said clones died instantly as the monster shot a giant ball of wind and sand forward. They dodged in the stands, retreating. The leader took a moment to make sure the situation in the stands was stable, then turned back to the middle of the stadium. More than half the clones there had already perished without doing much. Lightning didn't seem to harm it, and whatever black spheres they tried quickly burst from all the flying sand. Blinding didn't seem to have any effect, as did a dozen linked explosive tags. "Any other idea?" he asked, looking at his subordinates. There were no answers. "Second wave, go," he ordered, and 40 clones surged forward. They didn't have a plan to take it down, but keeping it occupied would have to be enough. The sand beast reacted instantly to the new arrivals, swiping one of his arms at the approaching squad. Most of the clones there used kawarimi to land safely, but one of those in the front had another idea. "Suetun, Tapa Nami Kyoha!" Bunshing yelled, disappearing as a lance of water surged forward. The surge struck the beast's incoming hand, quickly turning the sand into mud. 4 fingers fell a second later, the monster's hand no longer supporting them. "You saw that, right?" a Bunshin said right beside him. Water clearly worked, even if Tapanami Kyoha was supposed to be a defensive technique. "Everyone down there!" the leader ordered. "I want 5 clones making those lances every second. We'll hammer that construct until we get to the guy in the middle." "Yosh!" the clones yelled, surging forward. Hose after hose started lancing toward the beast, who slowly lost layer after layer. It took a good 30 seconds before Gara became visible, and the sand construct crumbled after the sand genin was hosed a few more times. "What do we do with him now?" one of the clones said as Gara choked and tried rising from the arena floor. "Kill him?" He was clearly not looking forward to such a choice. The leader didn't like that option either. He had memories of Lee's battle, and wasn't even sure if Gara had done this on purpose. It looked more like he'd lost control of something. He thought for a few seconds. "No," he finally said. "We blind him, drain him, keep him wet. We'll put him in one of the basement pools, see if that stops his sand." Said sand was still trying to surround the boy, and every 30 or so seconds another clone had to drench him once more. "We'll leave the decision to the boss." Hi. The 50 or so clones left around him answered, and 5 of them reached out to the genin. It took barely a minute before the boy was bound and blind, and 5 before the group was back in the tunnels with their captive. The Urohara tunnels did not only lead inside Konoha. Nearly half the exits were outside the village walls. Compared to those in the village, they'd seen very little use, as only the jumpers came in and out that way. Until now. Dozens of Kage Bunshins poured from every exit to the east of the village. The enemy force's entry point had been tracked there, and the clones weren't going to let them have it easy. The sand and sound forces had separate camps, close to but still some distance from each other. The sound camp was nearly empty, as they'd sent all their forces inside, leaving only the 3 snake summoners along with a few guards, those being the weakest of the sound troops. They were overwhelmed instantly. The sand forces were more professional. They had scouts, guards, doctors, and reinforcements in good order. They were prepared for just about anything. The surging clones still hit them like a hammer. It wasn't an instant victory like the sound camp, but it quickly became evident where the wind was blowing. Most of the elite sand ninja were inside the village proper, and what was left weren't expecting a large force right at their backs. Worse, it seemed like every single enemy was a clone, which meant that the sand forces were wasting their energies and losing troops without even inflicting adequate losses in return. They were slowly being pushed back toward Konoha, which meant that they'd either have to enter the village proper or be surrounded with their back to the wall. And neither option seemed survivable. Otoke sent another wide blade of wind forward, bursting 6 or so clones. 3 managed to jump over the attack, and were pelted with wind attacks and shuriken from the other ninjas standing behind him. The hole he'd created filled in less than 5 seconds, more ninja clones again, appearing to push forward once more. He had a quick look around, managing to catch Yura being blinded then overwhelmed. 2 genin and a chunin broke ranks to help him, but more of those bizarre ninjas intercepted them. He was now the lead remaining joint. He made some quick maths in his head. The support forces had already lost more than half their numbers, along with numerous wounded still left on the ground. What little news they had of the situation in the village wasn't pointing toward victory, more like the same thing as here. It was clear. They'd lost. They thought the leaf weak, but it had only been an act. It was clear they'd been prepared for the invasion. Therefore, as a loyal sand ninja, Otoke's had only a single option. Stop! He yelled. Sand forces, stand down! It took a moment, but the fighting slowed then stopped. Surprisingly, the Konoha shinobi in those weird masks also stopped, though still keeping ready for combat. He'd been prepared if they tried to profit from the opening, but they hadn't. There was no visible leader, so he turned to the clone right before him. Who speaks for your group? The ninja said nothing, clapping his hands and snapping his fingers in various ways. He then disappeared, another clone having taken his place. This one had spiky hair going from yellow to red as it rose, along with a rainbow crown. His mask was half green and half red, cut diagonally, and he had a visibly fake bushy beard. Talk, he said in a gruff voice. I would negotiate the Sand Force's surrender, Otoke said, gritting his teeth. He hated what he was doing, but he had no other choice. If the Sand Forces here didn't return at all, Sunagakure was done. There were small clans and lesser villages who wouldn't miss the opportunity, so he needed to preserve whatever Sand Forces he could. The Crown Ninja made more of these bizarre hand signs. Drop weapons. You'll be bound and blinded, then led to separate holding points, he then explained. Otoke's gulped. How about our wounded? The Konoha ninja looked around. There were more than 20 fallen sand ninja in sight, and more hidden being the masks of Konoha shinobi. Who are your medics? Sand medics, raise hands, Otoke's ordered, and about a dozen hands went up. The shinobi opposite him nodded. 5 guards to each medic. Everyone healed is bound and blinded. We'll let the medics work as soon as everyone else is secured. Ninja behind him started moving, 5 for each medical ninja. I accept your terms, the Sand said, reaching down. He unclipped his belt, letting it drop, then pushed both his hands together toward the man in front of him. It was better terms than what he expected. Most villages would have left the wounded to die, if they hadn't finished them off right then. Konoha today has proved its reputation handily. It was the strongest, and still the most decent. More of the bizarrely masked ninja stepped forward, and the Sand troops quickly disarmed and capitulated. Many had friends or allies wounded or bleeding on the ground, and everyone wanted them healed as quickly as possible. Go, go, go! Muramari yelled at a trio of women being accompanied by 4 Narutos, shadow clones, evidently. The whole group dashed through the exit he was protecting, quickly disappearing in the street. That's what he'd done for the past few minutes as the various fights wound down. He'd kept this particular exit safe and covered for whatever civilians and wounded leaf ninja were using it. He'd thought about joining the various fights going on, but there were already numerous clones going around, and he didn't think he'd be of much help. Looking around, he saw that his posting was no longer needed. The stands were now clear of civilians from his point of view, and the battles remaining seemed under control. Kuratori was also nowhere in sight, and the region they'd been seated in was empty. Time to find another place to help, then. He walked out of the arena using the same exit he'd kept clear. He found the street before the stadium safe and patrolled by disguised bunshins. There wasn't anything here for him to do. But he could get a better view of the situation. Just the other side of the road from the stadium was an apartment building, 7 floors high. It was perfect to scan a large percentage of the village from one point. He ran straight up the wall, mentally thanking his teacher once more for this technique. Incoming ally, a voice said above as he cleared the second-to-last floor, and Muramaru recognized it as a Chibo after a second's thought. The male clone arrived on top to find Ariko crouched on one of the corners of the roof, with tags planted all around her. She gave him a quick look before turning back toward the streets. Good work down there, Muramaru, she said. You saw? I've been here nearly since I escaped the stadium, she explained. I've gotten a good look at how everything's going. 2 targets. Ichibo called out. 40 degrees, 800 meters. Got them, the female clone replied. In a flash, 2 kunai disappeared from the ground, sent in the direction of the 2 enemies. Judging by the lack of sound, Ariko was using one of the techniques attached to the matsuri on the weapon she threw. A pair of muffled booms then rang in the distance. She clearly had the area under control. Anywhere that could use my help? Miramara asked. Ariko shook her head. Not really. Fighting's dying down everywhere I know of, and cleanup's all that's left. There's only real fighting in a single spot, really. Which is? Ariko said nothing, only pointed straight north. Miramara thought she meant the arena, but then he saw the purple cage on the roof above the kage seats. What is that? No clue, the female academy student answered. It was there when I arrived here. One thing is sure, though. Her face went serious. The Hokage's inside. Gigi? Miramara replied. He wouldn't have used the term normally, being reserved to the real Naruto, but the surprise had brought it out. Ariko simply nodded. Naruto's on his way, Ichigo then added, pointing down. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto yelled. 100 or so clones popped all around him, reinforcing the few ninjas still fighting. That was what Naruto had done for most of the invasion. He'd stood to the side and sent wave after wave of Bunshins. Sure, he could fight, but he was of more help generating more and more clones. By now, the arena was nearly empty, and his clones were finishing the last few battles. Iruka was long gone, the teacher having escorted a group of nobles out of the stadium, and Monty was around somewhere out of sight. Time to check on Gigi, then? He'd not paid attention to what had happened in the Kage's box, having more urgent issues to deal with. Gigi was the strongest in the village, he could take care of himself. But he was the best person to report to for orders. He wasn't even halfway to said seats when he noticed the purple walls on the arena roof. He didn't like the looks of that. A second look showed ANBU stationed around it, so he went up there. He landed barely 3 meters from the wall, and was about to go closer when an ANBU intercepted him. Be careful, Uzumaki-san, the ANBU warned with a female voice. Weapons thrown there turned to mist instantly, and another ninja had to be amputated after simply grazing this curtain. Naruto nodded. No worries, he replied and made a cross seal. A second later, a dozen copies appeared around him. He turned to the closest. You know what to do. The Bunshin nodded, and charged. For Konoha! He yelled, ramming the barrier headfirst. He disappeared instantly on touch, his few seconds of memories rushing back to the many Narutos. Fire, the real Uzumaki voiced, and then he smiled. Fire, both Muramaru and Ariko voiced from the rooftop they occupied. The male copy instantly got what Naruto was going to do. He turned to his female compatriot. Throw me. What? Toss me on the stadium roof, he cried out. I can help down there. But Ariko started. She didn't have the time to say anything else. Muramaru did a single hand seal and transformed into a javelin. In that form, it wasn't like he could answer her. She grabbed her fellow clone and took aim. She wasn't the best with this kind of weapon, but she didn't need exact precision for this throw. As long as she didn't miss the roof or hit this purple cage, everything was fine. Turn back after 300 meters, she said. And then she threw. She then grabbed as many kunai as she could hold in her hands and waited. Muramaru wasn't the only one who expected the cage to come crashing down. Looking back at his clones, Naruto knew they had the same idea he'd had. He nodded. Katan Akaraka Jigoki. He invoked, his copies in perfect synchronization with him. Naruto threw his own sphere, while the clones around him rushed the barrier, balls first. The 4 violet flames formation was a barrier that reacted by incinerating anything that came in contact with it. It had, however, no contingency for techniques that fed on flames. As soon as the first sphere made contact, the chakra requirements of the barrier doubled. Then tripled, quadrupled, quintupled as more balls came in contact. By the 7th, the sound 4 were tittering on the edge of unconsciousness. Naruto and his clones had made 12 spheres in total. The barrier vanished in a flash, and everything happened instantly. The charging clones cleared the area where the barrier had been and continued on. A pair found themselves rushing trees, and could not stop fast enough. Their spheres burst, incinerating said trees on the spot. One clone managed to redirect his ball toward a falling sound ninja. On contact, both clone and ninja turned to smoke as flames consumed them. Muramaru turned back to human form, scant meters from the rooftop, unseen by everyone who was focusing on the fallen cage. He redirected his momentum with a kick and charged for the trees. Naruto's sphere had continued on unimpaired, and found itself on a direct path with an unknown gray-eyed ninja with a Konoha headband. It didn't reach him, as the ninja made a single one-handed seal and sent a dense surge of water to intercept the sphere. Naruto recognized the technique, being one he had learned, and as such, the ninja used it. How had the second Hokage returned? The contact between ball and water released an enormous wave of hot steam, hiding the gray-eyed ninja from sight, along with a good part of the battlefield. But not from above. Ariko had a clear lane of fire on all the ninja formerly in the cage. The Hokage was easy to recognize, the giant staff in his hands being a big clue. She quickly sent everything she had to the three others. Orochimaru was the only one to dodge, the two others not even reacting as they exploded. The snake Sannin landed on top of one of the trees to have a good look at what was happening. The ANBU hadn't expected Naruto to bring the barrier down, and were caught flat-footed. It took a few seconds before the rushed en masse. By that time, Naruto had just generated a second group of clones, 100 strong this time. With clones and ANBU rushing his position, Orochimaru realized his battle against his teacher was done. While individually the ANBU weren't a danger, he couldn't fight them all along with his sensei. Still, that didn't mean he couldn't get a last hit in. A single hand seal from the snake Sannin whipped the steam at the Hokage to blind him, then threw his sword straight at his foe while he saw nothing. He then followed with a great breakthrough to give himself space and blow back the many weapons coming at him. Muramaru saw the snake Sannin's sword flying straight for Sarutobi, and reacted instantly. He jumped to the side toward the weapon and, as he'd been taught, slapped his arm parallel to the blade and glued it there. He then glued his feet to the ground. The sword nearly wrenched his arm off, but Muramaru released his hold before he could be dispelled by the force. He'd at least redirected the sword somewhat, and the blade found itself embedded in a tree half a meter to Sarutobi's side. Orochimaru hadn't left yet, hoping to see the result of his last strike. Scowling, he did another blast of wind to make space, killing a pair of clones easily with his other hand. He then lost said hand at the elbow. Monty had been waiting for his opening, and the snake ninja had finally given him one. Now inside his guard, the rabbit bounced off his other arm, severing it in the process, and rushed for his foe's neck. He was only a second too late. Another Orochimaru slitted out of the first's mouth, and the body left behind exploded. The Sannin didn't wait this time, vanishing in a shushin. Some of the ANBU quickly gave chase while others concentrated on keeping down the two ninja the Sannin had summoned, the many clones helping the latter. Naruto took a last look around, then sat down for a breath, realizing he'd been fighting non-stop for at least an hour. The battles were finally done. The invasion was over. Thanks for watching. I hope you had as much fun as I did putting this epic what if together. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a single twist in the story. Drop your thoughts, theories, or even wild ideas in the comments. I read every single one. And hey, if you're craving more awesome Naruto content, go check out the other videos on the channel. I've got plenty of heat waiting for you. Until next time, stay sharp, stay awesome, and remember, even a shadow clone needs love.